Hey now, we are live. Uh, Welcome to another episode of the Council of Tolkien. We're just getting started. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitch. I have Matt and Sid with me, and they're gonna. You don't see them, but they're wearing their rings. But they'll say something now, so you could hear them.
Can't see mine.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be with you.
I made it invisible. Hello, everybody.
Oh, so you pulled a Tom Bombadil, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he's my guy.
Hey, Sarah, how's it going? All right. Oh, I got to switch over to the multi-stream chat. There we go. How goes it, Sarah? Welcome in. My friend Sarah's in the chat. She recently hurt her leg, or not her leg, her foot pretty badly. Might need surgery. We're all kind of hoping she's doing better right now. Hey, Dylan, how's it going? So we're gonna have a fun time tonight. I want to let you guys know now, because it will come up, and I will probably have to explain this a few times. But I have both Matt and Sid with me today. You're doing okay? Okay, that's good to hear, Sarah.
Really good.
But Sid will not be with us next month. Sid, do you want to talk about it at all, or just leave it at that?
I'm happy to, but I thought you guys were going to do it in June.
God, you're right. Okay, my bad. You know what? In my head, I was thinking next month was June. That doesn't make sense. Next month is May. Never mind.
I have no problem. I have no problem with doing this in May either. So.
Oh, the only reason that I said June is because you wrote it on the script.
Me?
Okay, you guys saw the story whether you're spending a month in Lothlorien and losing track of time or not.
Yeah, the moon's the same. The moon's the same. What's going on? Aragorn, tell me.
Yeah. Basically, I would love to be with you guys whichever month you're doing the entire episode in the wonderful script that Matt wrote about Beren and Luthien. But my life is so complicated and has been for quite a while that I just couldn't devote the time and focus to do it well. So rather than drag the show down, I decided to step back on that 1 month and watch it, which I think will be really cool.
I think I said that in the email that you're going to get the opportunity to watch the show live,
and that is really great. And and do let me know if that's May or June, because obviously that determines what
next month was completely my mistake. We're going with June because that's what it says on the script, and that's what Laurel has heard. And speaking of what,
you guys, you've been announcing it for a while too.
Yeah, but I haven't. This is the first time I've said anything specific. Like I said, I was going with June because it says that on the script, and I think we should probably just go with that.
Yeah.
Especially since we're doing the table read on Saturday, and that will give Matt time to workshop anything that he needs to workshop there. So hey, the Manuzzo, how's it going? But that'll give you time to, if you want to make any adjustments, if you need to send out revised pages or anything like that, we'll have plenty of time for that. So next month, Sid will be here.
The reason it says June is because that's when it was written, but it didn't imply that it was only to be done on this show in June. We could do it next month.
Oh, you're right. It does say 2025. Well, let's do it in June for the same reason that I just said, that it gives you time to workshop things if you need to send out revisions or anything like that. And also, we could rehearse and everything. Hey there, Ted. How's it going? Made it for Tolkien Thursday. Indeed. So we have a great show. I'm going to head over to the main screen here so that you'll be able to see my lovely co-hosts. Let's introduce ourselves going from the left to the right. So that means starting with you, Matt. Go ahead. Hey, Moogle.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I am Matt Richardson, otherwise known as Lore Master, on this channel, website, and on Quora.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Brendan. How's it going? And you guys know me. I'm John Sierra, the Tolkien Scholar on YouTube. Same name. Well, just John Sierra on Quora. And of course, I mean, if you're here and you don't know who I am, then I don't know what to tell you. Sid, your turn.
I'm Sid Kemp, as the sign says. You'll find me as Sid Kemp on Quora, where I've answered 11,000 questions so far, half of them about Tolkien. That gives you a hint of what I'm into. I'm also on
Small
what's
hint.
called AO3, or Archive of Our Own, which is the most powerful fan fiction site. And I write a lot of Tolkien fan fiction and some C.S. Lewis fan fiction as well. And I get my grooming tips from Gandalf.
A wizard never gets a perm. He lets his locks flow naturally. Although I believe, it's interesting because I think we associate the wizards with having long hair. But I believe that Tolkien once told us that Radagast actually had rather short hair. Or at least
cool.
His beard was very short. And the way that he described it in his letter and really, really cool. Somebody pointed out that Tolkien's description of Radagast sort of matches St. Francis of Assisi, and there are definitely some corollaries there with the characters.
Have you read Tolkien's book called Letters from the Grave?
No, I don't have that one.
Yeah, it's a really good one. It starts off by saying that Radagast didn't have bird crap in his hair.
Definitely not. No, that was a very poor choice for the Hobbit movies. I saw some people thought it was amusing, but Radagast isn't really supposed to be amusing, and I think that was like sort of Peter Jackson's failing sometimes, was the characters that were supposed to be funny were not, and the characters that were not supposed to be funny were.
Yeah, well,
so
as I say, if it wasn't for him,
we wouldn't have yeah, exactly. We had some fantastic films anyway. That doesn't mean we can't criticize them. Sometimes I'll criticize an aspect of the film and people will say, well, who else was going to do it better? It can't be perfect and all this. And I'm like, I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that there's some things that I like and some things that I don't like. What I like outweighs what I don't like. Absolutely.
I honestly believe that nobody I've ever heard of in film production direction could have done nearly as well as what Jackson did for the
not at the time. No, not at the time, especially because epic films were not in vogue at the time. They became in vogue because of the Lord of the Rings.
Well, they're even less in vogue now.
No, they're very in vogue now. I mean, I just watched the film that just won the Best Picture, which was 3 hours long, and it was really good too.
I think you guys are using the word epic in two different ways. I guarantee it. So
I think you're right, but we do have both types of epics. I mean, we're getting a 4-hour film based off of the epic of all epics, the Odyssey, later this year. So
yeah.
And from one of my favorite directors.
Is it going to be 4 hours?
Yeah, that's what I've heard. 4 hours long.
Well, good.
Who is the highest ranking scholar in this group? You know what? We don't rank like that. But just think of us as the white, the brown, and the gray, perhaps. If anybody's in charge, like I'm in charge of the YouTube channel, but like as far as the group being put together, it's actually Matt who put us all together. So.
But one of the things we worked out in the first 3 months of the live stream is that we are each different, and it's great when we disagree.
Absolutely,
because Tolkien is vast enough that to be able to come together and say, you see it this way, I see it that way, has really, to me, what's made this continue to be special month after month.
I'll just say that to the person who asked that question, Sid is the oldest of our group.
He's got the experience.
He's the most wizardly for sure. But I would reiterate what John had already said, which is we're kind of like three pieces of a pie. We have overlapping specialties, and that's why this group, I think, is so kind of fun to be in and to watch, because there's nothing that's going to escape the three different ways that we look at Tolkien's work. So that's the cool part.
If you look at
sorry, go ahead, Sid.
if you look at just our expertise, you could say John is the master of languages. I'm the student of,
Spirituality, perhaps.
I could say spiritual wisdom.
Yeah.
And Matt is the expert on
Practical
materiality,
matters. Yeah.
practical matters. How much does anything in Middle Earth weigh?
And,
Ask Matt.
but you know what? Is also the 3 types of magic as well: practical magic, enchantment, and spiritual magic. So
Yeah.
there you go.
You're saying that Matt would have built Grand if he was Middle Earth.
To answer another question that came in, who wanted to put the Elvish names under the actual names, that was me. I came up with that idea because I thought it would be fun, and it is fun, and I was the one that did the translations. Of course, everybody had to approve their Elvish names. I didn't force them on anybody, but there you go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the chat has unanimously decided that you are a blue wizard, Sid. And it's not just because you're wearing a blue shirt, I don't think, because your Elvish name there, which is Alcar, they said it sounds a little bit like Alatar. So,
I'm honored.
There you go. And by the way, the way that I came up with it is that I researched what the name Kemp meant. And then once I had the name's etymology, I translated it into Quenya and then constructed it in a way that would sound good. So there you go. That being said, now we of course have 3 sections to get through. Matt is going to be going first, and then Sid is going to be going second, and then I'm going to be going last. Now, here's Unseen Stranger wants to know if we're going to be talking about Shadow of the Past. We should touch on this very briefly. So there is going to be another The Lord of the Rings film after The Hunt for Gollum that is going to be written by Stephen Colbert, which I approve of. I don't know about directing. I've heard Peter Jackson, but I'm not sure on that. I know he's working closely with it. But I've heard a lot of conflicting information. Some people are calling this an outright remake, saying that it's the first half of The Fellowship of the Ring. But I've also heard that it's actually a sequel that will follow Sam and his daughter in meeting Tom Bombadil and dealing with the Barrow-wights. So basically they're trying to do parts of The Fellowship of the Ring that did not make it into the initial films, but framing it as something that happens after the War of the Ring.
You know, I was against this idea when I first read about it because I was originally thinking, oh my God, this is just going to be like something off. But the more I read about where he's going with this, the more I actually have come around. I think this is chapters 3 through 8, which were largely avoided, I think strategically, correctly. So they were avoided. And
What
going
event? Right.
Go
Readers
ahead.
who don't. What are the events? Wait.
It's supposed to be basically the Old Forest and the Barrow Downs sections in Tom Bombadil.
Yeah. And but the more I read it, it sounds like what he's going to do is where the hobbits that are left, not Frodo, go on a little bit of a journey together to re-explore this. And I believe, well, what I read was it sounds like they're going to have some really good scenes in flashbacks, so that when they're talking about this with their kids on this adventure and talking to each other over the fireplace and that kind of thing, that they have these flashback scenes that are not short. They're actually recap scenes that could have been in the movie. And I think it's a smart way to go without pretending like you're trying to do a fill-in movie for what was left out 25 years ago.
Yeah, that all sounds. I'm worried about the sequel. The sequel would be 3 hours tromping through the Midgewater marshes, getting eaten by.
You love that joke. I'm cautiously optimistic. I have to see something concrete before I pass judgment on this. I need to see set pictures or a trailer or something, and that's a ways off, you know. And from my understanding, Stephen Colbert is just in the writing phase right now, and I've seen him working with Peter Jackson and Peter Jackson's wife as well. They'll probably get Howard Shore back, you know. We'll see how it goes.
Yep.
We'll see how it
That's
goes.
all. Yep.
Tom Bombadil on the big screen, though. That's
Well,
the
my only apprehension is they got to find somebody who's got that fine line between a little off and a little bit goofy, and actually
and a little bit
really
scary
good,
too. Yeah.
really scarily powerful. Yeah, you got to cut it. You can't make
Speaking
this
of which,
goofy.
Sid, I don't mean to put you on blast here, but I really need you to send me your cast list.
Yeah,
For those of you who remember, a few months ago, we took the roles of casting directors and cast The Lord of the Rings as sort of as like a 6-picture imaginary thing that'll never happen. But we had a lot of fun doing it. But I want to turn it into a video format where there's like pictures of the people that we've chosen and everything. And I have yours, Matt. I'm just waiting. Sid sent me something, but it was strangely incomplete. I think it was like an earlier draft.
Yeah, I think I had 2 docs running, and I still have to dig out one of them. I will do it.
Okay, so Matt, you're gonna go first. You're actually continuing from last month with your icons, which the chat really loved. I thought it was a lot of fun. And then Sid, you're gonna go second, and you're also continuing from your very deep dive into the relationship between Gandalf and hobbits. And then I'm gonna talk about Legolas today. So we're gonna talk about Legolas, and we're gonna have a little bit of fun with the character. More fun than Tolkien had, I think. But anyway, Matt, I'm going to start the timer for 2 minutes so you can just intro yourself. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. There are more factions than this, but basically, I'm going to be showing you all a good array of factions that total out to be about 30. There are about 30 main factions in Middle Earth, and I've got their logos, their flags, basically, and they show some really interesting things about the culture from each one of these places. And I'll be using that as a prompt to discuss the influence of the design, the art, where it came from, what it tells us about Tolkien, but also what it tells us about the characters and the people that he made, the cultures that fit into these particular camps, these particular factions. And that'll prompt some discussion. I did half of them last show. I've got looks like about 13, 14 more to go. I'm going to show them in groups, in pairs, because I think it's better than just doing it one at a time. That way we can kind of make our comments for the two and then move through them. So this is a way to kind of show them and talk about them, and because it hasn't been done, these kind of things aren't really done very much, and so I thought we'd knock that out in one of our shows.
Okay, excellent. And let me just set you up for, we'll set up for a half hour of discussion on this here, and go ahead. I don't know, I'm glad you remembered, because I asked you, do you remember where you left off? And you immediately said yes, because I didn't remember. I was going to go look at the video.
Oh, yeah. We left off at Lothlorien and Rune. And those are kind of a cool ones to start off with, because they're opposite kind of places. But I'm going to turn my screen around for us to take a look at this and use this as a prompt for us. Hopefully this will kind of come out.
Yeah.
Oops, wrong.
Yeah, it looks good. Yeah.
Right about there. Okay, there we go. We've got Lothlorien there on the left and Rune on the right.
You know, what's interesting...
Lothlorien,
yeah. I think you showed this last time, and I think my initial comment is, why are there 6 stars? And then I realized that the 7th star is in the center of the manor there.
The North Star.
Yeah. So we're seeing the Vala Kirka, the sickle of the Valar there, or also known as the Wain, the plow, and a few other things. The Big Dipper. Really cool. Rune is interesting because Rune isn't really any specific land or faction. It's just a direction. It means the east. And I'm assuming this is just one of the tribal Easterling flags that we're seeing.
That's what I understand as well.
Yeah.
Red and black, kind of tough. Easterlings have a similar. Easterlings have a similar setup.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. To answer the question there, what was Bjorn and the Bjornings doing during the War of the Ring? Bjorn was dead at that point. he'd passed on quite a while ago. They didn't mention what Grimbeorn the Old, his son, was doing during the War of the Ring, but considering they occupied the Misty Mountains, we would think of them as sort of the last line of defense before the Easterlings overran Eriador. But of course, they didn't get that far.
Yeah. Next group here is... Oh, go ahead, Sid. Sorry.
We know that the Beornings were still protecting the pass that led to the road into Mirkwood, and not letting any baddies go either way. They held on to that job.
I mean, there were a lot of layers of protection. I mean, obviously the Easterlings, they only got as far as the Lonely Mountain. But if they kept going, they would have. I mean, then it would have been Esgaroth, and then it would have been Thranduil's domain, and then it would have been Grimbeorn's domain, and then Elrond and the Shire. That would have been the last lines of defense before all the elves literally jump ship.
If anybody's interested out there for knowing anything about how big Bjorn was or how big the bear form he was in, reach out to me by at Quora or at the end of the show or whatever, and I'll let you know what the general dimensions roughly were.
Okay. So you have
Next one here.
Dol Guldur and Rudar. Interesting.
Dol Guldur and Rudar. You'll notice that Dol Guldur is this.
Could you tilt it? Could you tilt it so it's because we're getting a glare there? There you go. There you go.
Sorry about that. Rudar is. I'm sorry, not Rudar. Dol Guldur is the moon shining through the trees of the forest, which is a really cool way to show how the southern part of Greenwood the Great or Mirkwood has become tainted.
And the blood moon also behind the tree invokes the Eye of Sauron as well.
Yeah, that too. And it's the blood moon. It's very, very cool. It's a very cool flag for this particular. I guess the troops or the people, or not people, but the orcs that are in this area would have that kind of identification, and that's kind of a cool faction. It's one of my favorite ones so far because it's little known, and but it's on this big list.
To answer what you're saying, Dylan, I don't think the Blue Wizards failed in the East. I think the fact that they didn't overrun Rovanion completely and then move further into the West was because of what the Blue Wizards do. So David here is saying, is it just me or does the Lothlorien one with the plow not really make sense? The shape and the number of stars. Well, there's definitely 7 stars in that.
It wasn't the shape. Plow. It's a Celtic design.
Well, I'm talking about the constellation that you would make with those stars.
Well, actually, John, you said something that doesn't quite work because the 7 stars of the Great Bear, Ursa Major, etc., do not include the North Star.
I didn't say the North Star. That's what Matt said.
Okay. Anyway, in any case, that was kind of said, and if the one in the emblem is the North Star, then something is missing.
Yeah. I mean, it could still be the Valakirka. It's just that's not the North Star. Now, Rudar is interesting. I'm trying to discern what that is. What is that?
Oh, it's a dog.
Is it skeletal?
Yeah, no, it's almost native looking. I believe one of the Black Riders, at least in some subcreation, is from Wa. He's known as the Dog Lord. And I believe that this particular area had a lot of wild dogs and other types of attack dogs that were trained. And that is their symbol.
Matt, a suggestion just about presenting all of these. When you first showed them, it would be good if you moved it closer and gave us a full picture of the one on the left and a full picture of the one on the right.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, do it like that. Yeah, thank you.
There we go. Okay.
Are you going to join?
It's a little bit hazy in the.
I can see it better now. Yeah. Now you were saying Wa, and I swear I just came across that word when I was researching something unrelated to Rudauer. What was it? Well, whatever it is, I think that Wa is isn't that in Beleriand?
Well, it'd be north, which would be at the cusp of where this might be.
Like
if
for
if you're thinking about the whole expanded area that wasn't sunk.
yeah, but Rudauer is Arnor. That was it's a part of Arnor. It's like that's
Right.
like where Bree and the Shire meet.
Right. These. It's all like the only connection I have is
Yeah.
is the dog lord, and and this being a dog. That's definitely a dog.
Yeah, I think that one's a bit contentious. I think that they because Tolkien didn't really talk about Cardolan or Rudauer all that much, so I think they're filling in the blanks, which is perfectly fine.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree they are, and they're surmising, and it's sometimes surmise is okay when it might be the only tunnel we've got, and so
Yeah.
this is kind of where they are. There's no other competing theory, so we're using the only theory we've got.
Okay.
Next grouping, and if you want these blown up separately, anybody just let me know. The second grouping is Linden and the Lonely Mountain, or Erebor. These are really, really cool.
Lindon's very interesting to me, I think. See, I am surprised to see that Lindon does not involve a ship. I would have expected to see a ship there. A compass, or maybe a sextant would be more appropriate.
It's got a compass, a nautical compass look to it.
And Erebor, boy, that's an interesting sort of design there.
Yeah, it's got.
I mean, 7 stars again.
Yep, 7 stars. The crown on top, and the Celtic design with the Arkenstone in the middle.
I think in this instance, the 7 stars would be the dwarf lords and the 7 houses of the dwarves.
Let's see. Is it 6 stars plus the king? Durin?
Well, I think the one in the middle, which you called the Arkenstone, but I think that's just the brightest one. That's probably Durin.
It could be both.
Oh no! I'm talking about in the very middle of the Celtic design.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not seeing that as being necessarily the Arkenstone, because that wasn't really something that was important until Thrain's reign. That was dug up while Thrain was king. Thrain the second.
Correct, but I think these factions are definitely late Third Age.
That could very well be. I mean, I'm seeing it as that represents Durin, the Deathless,
right?
More so than the Arkenstone.
So this is what you might call Middle Earth modern, as opposed to ancient.
Mm-hmm. Middle Earth contemporary, right?
Yeah, if you want to call it that, yeah.
That
looks like.
Would a sextant work for a flat disk world? Absolutely not. It would not work. But after the Akalabeth event in the Second Age, the world of Arda, which contains Middle Earth, is not any longer a flat disk world. But
well, there's one exception to that. If the world is flat and there's still stars, which there were, and you didn't know which direction you were going at night, and the stars still had a pattern to them, it could help you.
Well, a sextant wouldn't help. Using the stars would help, but as the tool, that was what Davis was asking in the chat there. Would a sextants would not work? No.
That's what I mean. Sorry about that. Okay, next one is Dorwinian and Isengard. Oh, I love these. These are so great.
The Isengard one is appropriately creepy, because not only do you get the white hand of Saruman, which is of course what we would expect, but it almost invokes sort of a pirate flag motif, for it's sort of very poorly drawn and just 2 colors, white on black, very creepy looking.
Well, it looks like a white hand that an orc might try to draw.
Exactly.
I was going to say, it's almost a white claw.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a.
I wonder if that had a nicer flag in earlier days.
And it's sort of. Well, I would think that. Well, that would be the Gondor flag, really. Saruman was the one that was sort of seceding from Gondor in a sense. It also looks like it invokes the feeling like this is a severed hand, like it. As if you look at the
Well, it
way
feels
that
to me
it
like
comes to a point.
Saruman didn't care how the hand was portrayed; he just let them do it, and it looks
Mm-hmm.
like a third grade art, or what a orc simpleton mind might put together for art.
Very similar to
Which
most pirate flags.
right,
They were
which
very
makes it
crudely
creepy all
drawn.
by which makes it creepy by itself.
Now, I mean, the Dorwinian
You-
one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sid.
You're giving me an image of third grade for Uruk High, which is really, really.
Yeah. No, Davis, I don't think it was originally the Hand of Eru. I think that the White Hand of Saruman was just something that he came up with. Isengard probably didn't have any iconography previous to that, except maybe the Tower of Orthanc. Speaking of which, Dorwinian, of course, I mean, it's evocative of both a tower and a tree and stars all at the same time, which is all very cool first age stuff,
Yeah. So there's Derwinian. All right, next set is Dunland and Mount Gundabad. These are also pretty cool. The Dunland one is really cool.
So for the Dunland, when we have a Kraban, which makes sense because that's where they're native to that land. That's very cool. I like it.
Very cool. And Gundabad.
Hey, WT. Mount Gundabad. Okay. You see, that's interesting because you have these sort of like two faces sort of facing the east and the west, and the mountains in the center. I like it.
Yeah, these are pretty good. They're very accurate to what they're trying to portray.
Yeah.
So there's Mount Gundabad.
Was that a volcano? I'm just trying to the red flare.
It certainly invoked a volcano. I don't think Mount Gundabad was volcanic, but it certainly invokes that sort of feel.
It had a peak.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think that mountains they could be volcanic in the distant past, and then they sort of just calm down and go to sleep, and that might be the case, especially with formations like the Misty Mountains, which were probably remnants of the War of the Valar.
Next one up is the Vales of Anduin and the Blue Mountains.
So for the Vales of Anduin, it almost looks like that's a bear, which is interesting.
Yeah, it is.
So are we associating that area with the Bjornings?
You could think of where Beorn lived as the north end of the Vales of Anduin.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of Vales of Anduin, I think of like Gladden Fields and where Gollum lived. But you're right. I mean, any place where there's vales near the Anduin could be considered such.
I think it's a fair assumption that they're looking at this place as the hereditary place of Bjornings, and that would be, it's very German looking in some sense because the Germans use that standing bear a lot.
Well, the hereditary origin of the Bjornings would be Mount Gundabad.
Well, that's true. Well, there it is, and here's the next one here.
No, you got to move the screen.
Yeah, this one is Blue Mountains, which is pretty self-explanatory there.
The Blue Mountain. I mean, it's blue. There's mountains. We got the 7 stars again, and they're more arrayed in the more Moria sort of array that we saw on the Doors of Durin. Also, I like the anvil and the 2 hammers because there was definitely a lot of mining and crafting going on up there in the Blue Mountains.
So there's that faction. Then the next 2 in the lap, actually, so we've got 4 more. Here are...
You've got plenty of time.
Okay, I got Breland and Forhel.
Thank you, Joe. And by the way, Sid, Joe in the chat says that your beard is looking beautiful. The Breland one is amazing. I love it. Could you, once again, you got to, there you go, because there's a glare. That's fantastic, because Bree, I mean, this is one of the things, I'm going to go back to the Peter Jackson films for a moment. They didn't portray Bree correctly. It's supposed to be one of the most beautiful places, both in terms of the way it looks and the way that they live, hobbits and big people living together in harmony. And what we got was this dreary, rainy, muddy, scary place, which I wasn't fond of that interpretation.
We also covered most of the film footage at night.
Yeah. But even when they were leaving, with Aragorn, it kind of looked very, very dreary. I love it. That's really cool.
All right. The next one next to this in this set is Forachel. Very cool.
Oh, listen to Matt correctly pronouncing Forachel. That's not easy to do.
Come on, John.
I'm just saying, I'm giving you kudos here. I am giving you kudos. You deserve the kudos. Let Bree be free.
Flag. That's a cool flag.
Forachel, yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, the crescent moons have a lot of, and a lot of cultures in real life use the crescent moon. But in this case, it gives me what it would invoke would be Tilion sort of like going near Aryan a bit for a little tryst.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, and last set here. Which is really actually quite interesting. I mean, the one is Umbar, and the other one is Far Harad. And Umbar is going to be surprising to a lot of people. I'll put this up by itself.
I wrote a lot about Umbar last year.
But this is going to be cool.
Oh, it couldn't be more simple, huh?
I never thought of them as artsy folks.
Do you know what I would expect for Umbar? Just whatever Gondor is with a line through it.
Hold on. Umbar, this is a Númenórean thing. And it was settled even when they were still under some influence from the elves in Tol Eressëa, and they still use their print, use their alphabet. So this particular flag is actually harking back to the early second or middle second age.
Yeah, absolutely.
What letter of which alphabet is that, John?
That's the Kyrth, and I'll bring it up here so I can show the Kyrth.
This is the U.
Yeah, it is. I wanna bring up the key here in Appendix F. Oh, I'm sorry, Appendix E. So here we have. I'm going to try and hold it up here. I don't know if it's going to show that well, but you can see the alphabet there. And that is indeed the U sound. Of course, Tolkien thought phonetically. It's not. I'm sorry, not the Kyrth, but the Tengwar rather. But yeah, that is the U sound there. Let me see if I can get the exact note on grade 2, letter 6 there. Oh, no, actually, no. Hold on a second. I'm comparing them here. It's mirrored. That's the problem. Your webcam is mirroring it. So I'm actually seeing a B, but it is the U.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not mirrored.
No.
That's strange. No, that's a B.
Then they've got it wrong.
Yeah, they definitely got it wrong. That's a B.
Yeah, they got it wrong. It's supposed to be the
far,
other way for the U.
In the chat there, Offtree is saying Bree is lovely in the Lord of the Rings online. And what's funny is I've never played that game. But a friend of mine, his name is Dan, he doesn't play that sort of game either, but he was challenged to play a bit of the Lord of the Rings online. And I was at his stream when he was doing that, trying to help him navigate. And he was in Rivendell, and he's like, I'm trying to get to some place called Bree. And I'm giving him directions on how to get there. And he's like, oh, so you've played this game before? I said, never in my life. I just know Middle-earth. I've never played it before.
Well, it's typical sometimes when we're doing translation that they would adapt this incorrectly, so I'm not surprised. What is cool about it, though, is that the gold and black choice of the flag is very Númenórean. That's cool. Okay. This is Far Harad.
So Umbar should be a star, by the way, a red star on a black background. Far Harad. I mean, we have a Mumak.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a Mumok, and we also have something sort of evocative of an eclipse, a solar eclipse.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And what is Gandalf refer to Farharad as where the stars are strange?
Yeah.
Because when you think of to translate what that means, Farharad is the deep south, the southern hemisphere, Africa.
Now, as we conclude my section, I would love for each one of us to pick each one of our 2 favorites personally. So here's the whole screen.
Yeah.
We went through
Sort of scroll
a
through
bunch
them
of
slowly.
last week. Yep.
Last month.
Yeah, last month.
I think it would be better if you brought up the bigger version and then slowly scrolled through it, because those are way too tiny to see.
Okay. So I'm going to...
all 3 of us wear glasses, so...
Yeah, I know. So I would love to have your opinions on which one of these is your favorite. Here's the top.
I think I know
the
my
top group we had from last month.
Yeah, but could you?
I can't read the name.
Yeah, could you bring up the big versions and then just scroll through it slowly?
Oh, sure.
Because that's way too small.
The first set we had was obviously the really cool ones, Woodland and Gondor.
Yeah. Yeah, just sort of like with your finger, just slowly scroll it up.
That's easier said than done here. I try to go this way.
Well, you could no, not that way. Up. There you go. There you go. Wait, you had it for a second. Yeah, no, you're doing it right.
All right.
Yeah, so we have Rivendell and Dale.
Rivendell is high on my list. I know I'm going to go for one of the blue ones. So Rivendell.
You truly are the blue wizard. The Iron Hills and Rohan.
Iron Hills and Rohan.
Yeah.
Okay. And then now we're going down to where we were today.
Umbar and the Lonely Mountain. Oh, you zoomed out.
Yeah.
I know it's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
We had here's a nice little set of 6.
Could you actually hold on a second. Could you send me the image?
Sure.
No, doing it like that works. That's great.
This is a group of 6.
That's great.
This is Mordor.
Yeah. Now, I had said this today about the Isengard one being very pirate flaggish, and now seeing the one from last month for the Misty Mountains, very, very pirate flag.
Yeah, Misty Mountains is cool. Yeah. So there's that group of 6.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
So if you're making notes to yourself, I'd like to know which one is your favorite or 2 favorites.
Well, I know which one, but we haven't seen it yet.
Okay. So here's the next group of 6.
That's the best way to do it, I think.
Yeah. Here's a group of 6 from the very beginning. So it's going to be a bigger view, but better.
We haven't seen all of Arda Davis. That's why we only really know Middle Earth. All right, yeah. See, I really like the Arthedain one too. But my favorite is the Dol Amroth one.
Okay, mark it down.
If you've got Dol Amroth, I like it too, but I'll stick with Rivendell.
The swan ship and everything, it's just perfectly drawn. It's exactly what I would expect.
Here's another group of 6. Rohan is so classic.
See, I would have expected Lindon to be sort of the northern counterpart to Dol Amroth, but they didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm switching to Lothlorien.
Yeah, I kind of figured, right?
All right, and here's another group of 6, and then we'll be done.
Oh, the Mount Gundabad one is also, and Dunland. I mean, I love the drawing of the Kraban.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Remember, folks, Kraban is singular. Krabain is plural. So nice, I know I will get comments on that.
Nice, John. Okay, there's the other 6, and here's the last 6. This one is the last 6.
Yeah, the Rohan one is amazing.
We did Mordor and Khand, right?
Well, you haven't held it up, but yes, that was last time.
Okay, here is this group of 6. Ended is just kind of cool.
Yeah. No, you actually did hold those up earlier. Yeah, we saw that was the first one actually. But yeah, the Ended one is God, it reminds me of that thing from like the Neverending Story, that symbol.
All right, here's the last 6 then to make sure we've got it all covered. This is the last 6. All right, I want to hear votes from you guys.
Well, you know what I said. I'm saying that the Dol Amroth flag is my favorite because it invokes not only that specific region of Gondor, but the history of not only Numenor, but going back to Gondolin as well.
Yeah. Okay, I want each one of us to come up with 2. All right, give me your votes.
And my 2 are Lothlorien and Rivendell in that order. I have a question. Was there any flag for the Havens for Círdan's land?
That's Lindon.
That's Lindon. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, mine, the 2 that I like the most and I think are the best, obviously I said Dol Amroth, but also Dunland. I just really like the drawing and I think the Kraban
So
there.
Dunland and Dol Amroth?
Yeah.
You like the D's, huh?
Yeah, that's strange how that came.
Well,
a lot of because think of Dorthonion and Dorwinion and there's so many D names,
Well, I'm going to go with Isengard and Near Herod.
The pirate flag ones.
Well, it's this guy right here.
Yeah.
Just think.
Well, that's also very pirate flag, just orange instead. And we talked about that a lot last month about the serpent, the black serpent.
The black serpent, yeah. Easterlings use this logo as well, and I just like it. And but the
this
Mordor
this
one
is so
awesome too.
Perfectly timed because we have a minute left. By the way, just so perfectly timed.
Well, thank you, John. I have my own stopwatch going here.
Círdan is Davis, probably one of my favorite characters.
I'm going to go with one other that's really. I just want to talk about one other for 30 seconds, which is this one on Angmar.
Yeah,
I just think it's cold, icy, and awesome. It's like a gate.
It also invokes the feeling of like the crown that Sauron would wear in the movies.
Yeah, it's the Angmar. It's the Angmar logo.
I'm just going to stop the timer.
And Forachel, Angmar, Forachel, and Rohan are just so classic to me in my mind. But anyway, there's
somebody's been reading my articles about pronunciation.
It's working, John. They're listening.
We're getting there, right? Somebody's been. Every time you say Forachel, I'm like, oh, it's good on Matt. Good on Matt. Excellent. It's not the easiest thing. Do you know that when I filmed the somebody asked a really good question. It was related to the films of Arwen. By the way, the actress who plays Arwen, Liv Tyler, has immaculate Sindarin. Immaculate. She was really good at speaking Sindarin. And they said when she says, "I'm the faster rider" to Aragorn, he says, she said this word. It sounded like she said Rohan. And that's the horse place. Does that just mean rider? And I'm like, oh man, you're going to get me going here because Rohan means horse country. But what she said was Rohan, which is rider. But rider land would be Rohand. And Rohan is the same language. It's Sindarin, but it's the Gondor dialect. So, yeah, Rohand.
That the Gondor dialect would be used in naming Rohan.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I love the fact that she took that role so seriously.
She was great. I think that it's unfortunate that she's not returning to play Arwen, but I understand, elves may not age, but people who play elves do. Although I think she still looks great.
My favorite linguistic bit similar to Rohan is that, and you'll correct my pronunciations, but Galad in variations means both light and tree.
It's Galoth.
Galad means both light and tree.
Yeah.
And you really wonder why until you read the Silmarillion and learn about the light of the two trees.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, Galadriel comes from that.
Galadriel. Well, she's maiden crowned with golden flowers. That was Celeborn's name for her. Of course, she had a bunch of other names. Her father called her noble woman, and her mother's name for her was actually Man Maiden because she was so tall. So she has these like weird names, and finally her husband comes along and comes up with something really pretty, and she's stuck with that.
That's one way to win her heart.
Whoa, you sound very different, Matt.
Sorry, I put my earphones on.
Okay, let me lower your volume just slightly because you're louder now, and just
sorry about that, John.
Okay, there we go. All right, so Sid, you have the next section, and I know you're continuing, but we're still going to give you 2 minutes to explain where we're at, where we've been, and where we're going. So go ahead.
I'm going to briefly get brighter because I'm reading my notes.
That's fine. Don't worry.
We are continuing the journey of Gandalf. And we talked last time about that he did free himself from the Geese. And then and that was the first of two great leaps in his wisdom when he was no longer deluded by Saruman and the power of Saruman's voice. And you hear that at the Council of Elrond, where he can so clearly lay out every single option that anyone thinks of and say, well, that won't work. And he clearly knows the mind of Sauron directly, and he can tell people what Sauron is thinking. The other thing that happened at the Council of Elrond that I believe was a result of the release from the Grease, and this is very subtly done, Galadriel is included in the support of the quest. We don't know it at the time. All we know is Eladon and Elro here go across the Misty Mountains and land in some mysterious place. But if you read that in hindsight, you know they went to see their grandma. And that is why that when Aragorn and the remaining 8 of the company arrive in Lothlorien, she's prepared. She welcomes them. She knows their mission. She's agreed to support it because once the news came back that she said yes, Gandalf planned all the time. He never told anyone except Aragorn, but he planned all the time that they would get respite in Lothlorien with Galadriel as they did. Then, of course, the next big step up for Gandalf,
5 seconds.
very appropriate to be talking about it on Good Friday, is Gandalf's death.
That is right.
And time in heaven and resurrection. And the key quote about that, this is from the time in Fangorn Forest where he's arriving and they don't know he's Gandalf. And then even though they know he's Gandalf, they don't know he's Gandalf the White. He says, I was Gandalf. I am Saruman as he should have been. And the profundity of that statement and how it works out in relation to Saruman, he can now simply declare, you're busted, and Saruman's staff breaks. He now has the power of words that Saruman misused. He now has the authority of the White Council as its leader. And so on the spirit, there's something in English.
Okay, we're past intro at this point, so let me just stop and set the half hour. Okay.
Okay, no problem. I'll say,
okay.
In
All right,
English
go ahead.
speaking, lords are very often named for the lands. Like you could call the Earl of Sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes into the I am Saruman. I am in the role of Saruman. I just wanted to mention that.
Amroth as well was a big one.
Yes. So I have a lot more to say. I'm just going to skim down a bunch of topics and let you guys pick. And if you
Okay.
run out of steam, I'll pick
Yeah.
another one.
Can I just react to something that you said? Well, two things really. One is he did tell Aragorn that they were going to go to Lothlorien, and because Aragorn said that's what he knew, he didn't know anything beyond that. What Gandalf's plan
Yeah.
was. The other thing, and I'm so happy that you mentioned this because you said about Elladan and Elrohir, the sons of Elrond, going to see Galadriel, who is their grandmother. You know, I get a question about where they went, like just about every week. Like, what did they see? What did they find? Why didn't they tell anybody but Elrond? And I'm like, okay, I'll go over this again. They went to see Galadriel. That's why she was so prepared. You know, so I'm glad you said that, because then there's yet another video on my channel where somebody lays it out very simply. And by the way, this is unrelated, but I was talking with Laurel last week, and one of the things that I said was about you, Sid, was every time you have to read something from one of your files, you turn into a spirit. But it can't be helped, so.
There's one subtle point when they arrive and meet Galadriel. We learn, although it's never said, that Celeborn is not on the White Council. He is not in the know. Galadriel, his wife, does not share with him what she agreed to do and told her grandsons.
I've always
And
loved
it's very
the relationship there. Some people don't understand it, but I think out of anybody here, Sid, you would understand it better than anybody. Is that when you've been married for a long time, you sort of can be apart comfortably, and have your own sort of existence. I mean, there was a point where Galadriel traveled to a land that Celeborn didn't like, and they were apart for like centuries, but it doesn't reflect poorly on their marriage. As a matter of fact, I think it reflects really well on their marriage that they're able to sort of do that she could take a separate vacation from him, and then they come back to each other.
I feel really honored by that, given that Chris and I have spent up to 10 months apart twice.
Now, I have to pose a question to the chat here, because Tommy in the chat says Celeborn is the worst elf. Nobody likes Celeborn. He's the worst elf. I'm wondering... I don't really like the character personally. I like Galadriel. I think that Tolkien didn't like the character, and he was working on improving Celeborn when he died. But, I mean, in a world that gave us Feanor and Eol and Mathros, how could we say Celeborn's the worst elf?
Well, hold on. I want to defend the actor and the portrayal for a second.
Well, I'm not talking about the actor. I'm just saying that as Celeborn as a character, I don't really care for.
I want to defend the whole thing. The actor, the way he was portrayed, everything. He's an old elf. And if he appears to be that way, and he appears to be of the ale type, of the Feanor type, which there were a lot of them, then he came across the way he kind of should have been. Actually, he wasn't as likable as
he's more the Thingol type.
Yes, and I think that was okay. I think they captured it okay.
No, Tommy, he didn't say he was the wisest. Galadriel said that. He wasn't tooting his own horn. His wife was tooting his horn for him.
Yeah.
Which is appropriate.
And I think that was, John, I think you're right. He's the Thingol type. He's the ale type. And I think portraying that kind of male figure in The Lord of the Rings in juxtaposition, in contrast even, to make Galadriel seem to be fairer and different a little way was very smart and also very accurate. So I got no problem with it at all.
I do want to bring it back on topic for Sid, but my final word on Celeborn is Tolkien was working on this character when he died. We don't get a backstory for him, so we don't really know why he is the way he is. Go ahead, Sid, though. Let's go to your topics here.
Okay, so some of the here are some of Gandalf's powers, which I'll just give you a list, talk about whichever you want, and if you want more, we can do it further on. True understanding and vision, Complete understanding of Sauron's mind is evident at the Council of Elrond. Galadriel had a similar one, probably Elrond, but he doesn't speak of it. He had full understanding of all he needed to see and know, and to guide the free peoples to victory once he released the Geese. And as Gandalf the White, he could literally stand in the middle of Fangorn Forest, go like this, see out of the forest, all the way across the Anduin, and see what Frodo was doing in the Emyn Wheel.
Frodo didn't
Talk
even...
about...
that's the one I want to talk about. Frodo didn't even pass out of his sight until he was in Mordor.
Yes.
And that's just amazing. I mean, talk about... it's not just a simple matter of vision, you know? It's almost like he's doing this just to let people know he's looking, but he's not looking with his eyes, I don't think.
Yeah.
He's looking with his wizard's eye.
Yeah. And he's seeing around the curve of the world at that distance. So clearly it's a wizardly eye.
Absolutely.
That is just any distant.
And it's obviously...
And he doesn't need a mirror to do it the way Galadriel.
Yeah. It's obviously greatly... especially since what he sees is true and what the mirror shows can be true, but also can be false. Obviously it's exaggerated when he's Gandalf the White, but we see it with Gandalf the Grey as well. We see it in the chapter Many Meanings, when we get actually something that we almost never get. We get a character's inner thoughts that is not Frodo or Sam or Merry or Pippin. We get Gandalf's inner thoughts of looking at Frodo's wound and what he thinks about what's happened and what almost happened to Frodo, and he's looking at him with his wizard's eye.
Yes.
And that could only be in the book because Gandalf told them that. He thought that.
I have a comment
Go ahead.
Gandalf's powers. Now, as we all know, when the elves first put on their rings, they sensed Sauron's presence in the rings, correct?
No, they weren't wearing the rings at the time. Celebrimbor heard the voice.
There's a passage that the elves would not wear the rings because...
Yeah, but they weren't wearing them at the time. They never really wore them.
They never put them back on.
Yeah.
Once the One Ring was... the inscription was declared by Sauron.
I just want to very quick address something in chat. Davis, that's the movie. He didn't do that in the book.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So the way we all remember this is there's some kind of taint that the elves are aware of in the ring based on Sauron's involvement.
Well, Celebrimbor heard the enchantment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So...
And he understood what it meant. He knew that if an elf put on one of the 3 elven rings that Sauron had never touched, while Sauron was wearing the One Ring, Sauron would know his mind completely and probably be able to control him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All that is clear from this.
So what I'm getting at here is that I think the fact that Gandalf wore one of these rings of power meant that he had, I don't know what's the right word for this. I do, but I got to think about it. He had possibly some kind of psychological or psychic snapshot, some kind of bare frequency connection.
Well, Sauron doesn't have the One Ring.
I understand that, but there's some
kind. Matt, there is a word for it, and it's a Catholic word. God is omniscient, sees all, sees everything.
Yeah.
A saint can be plenishant, able to see everything and know everything he needs to see and know.
So this
and
is
when
Gandalf
saying this. Gandalf,
it's a weird omniscience. They're both Maya. The the amplification of the powers of a Maya is greater than an elf. So the elves know that there's some kind of connection between the ring and Sauron. They know this. Now it's on the hand of Gandalf, and Gandalf uses it. And I wonder, since uh, Sauron does not have the ring yet, I personally believe, north of 50-50, that there's some kind of info, some kind of connection, some kind of plans being laid bare. Maybe not laid bare, but there's Gandalf knows more about what
I think I know what you're
Sauron's
trying to
purpose
say.
is.
He's back. You think that the ring, Narya, is giving him some insight into Sauron's mind?
Not
Or
mind exact. Not well. You're close. Just let me finish this thought, because it's a very slight point here, very fine point. Not plans, but kind of
temperament?
a snapshot to temperament and some kind of psychological motivation or analysis that other people do not have, because he has a ring, he wears it, and he's a Maya. And there's some kind of thing that helps him figure some stuff out.
Actually, we're jumping down to a little further in my thing because I researched this today. It is absolutely clear and documented. If you look up what we know about the power of Narya enhancing the power of Gandalf, Narya had these powers. The power to inspire others to resist tyranny, domination, despair. We see that in his helping Bilbo give up the ring and helping
I would actually
Theoden
wait. I would actually state that that's not exactly accurate. It's that Gandalf has that power, but Círdan's words were that the ring gives him the stamina needed to do that.
And
I would
some amplification, I would agree.
Yes,
Yeah,
100%. Because he's in this limited old man body and doing these things. Like, the two most difficult things that he ever had to deal with were Bilbo and Thorin above the Balrog. He said this in Unfinished Tales. Bilbo and Thorin were the biggest pains in his butt. Dealing with these must have been exhausting spiritually, and the ring, I think, prevented him from feeling the fallout of that.
agree completely.
Yep.
It also helped him. It's what I call Gandalf's grayness. The fact that everybody forgets about him. Even Galadriel can't find him when he's not in Lothlorien. He simply wanders, and nobody knows where he wanders. And he thinks and sees and understands, and nobody can read his mind.
I can give you some insight on that, actually. He's a master user of the Asanwa Kanwa, which is the exchange of thoughts. And there is receiving and there is giving. And the thing is, receiving and sending. And you cannot look into another person's mind unless they are open to you. And there are a lot of different factors having to do with age and authority and station and power. And Gandalf basically is at the top level, just below Saruman, until Saruman's out of the picture, in terms of the usage of protecting his mind from anybody who might be looking.
And also related to Saruman and also Sauron, those who are not in harmony with the light lose their power of vision because of their own biases and prejudices. We talked about this last month in relation to Saruman. With Sauron, Gandalf reveals at the Council of Elrond, he looks at everyone through the madness of his own paranoia, and therefore can't imagine what the idea of destroying the ring. It also gives resistance to the weariness of time, and it may have had some properties of magic and fire. Here's one that is on the wiki that I disagree with. I believe that Gandalf held the power of the flame of Anor, the flame of the sun, and that wasn't about. I'm not saying it wasn't enhanced by Narya, but it was not. Well, it was enhanced because it's a ring of fire. But
the ring of fire is because it had a ruby on it.
Yeah, but but you have different elements, and fire it does enhance the light, but I think Gandalf fundamentally was a channel
He's a spirit
of
of flame.
Anor.
He's absolutely a spirit of flame.
But he's also a spirit of the sun. Remember
Mhm.
what happens when he rides down the hill? Look to the east at sunrise at Helm's Deep. I think that is his first magnificent display of power. And you see it again when he rides out against the flying Nazgul
To save
and
Faramir,
rescues
yeah.
Faramir single-handedly.
Yeah.
In those moments, he is, and Tolkien says this, he is as unveiled as he is allowed to be for the purposes of his mission.
Yeah. So I think I'm glad you guys are kind of seeing what I'm getting at here. And I have one other thing to say about this along powers. Gandalf knew the ring was moving, and thereby Frodo was still safe. And the reason he knew those things in reverse order in the way that it was written in the book, he knew he was safe, and thereby the ring was still moving because it had not found Sauron's hand yet. And I think he knew that he had enough connectivity in some way that if it had been come close to Sauron, to be warned by Sauron or reclaimed by Sauron, if anybody would be the first to know, it would be him. And that's how he reverse engineered knowing that Frodo was still safe, even though he was crossing the plains of Gorgoroth. And at that particular time, when he answered the question, I think posed by Aragorn, what is it? What do you think? And he's like, I think he's safe. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people miss that particular really cool detail about not only his power, because I agree with everything you guys have said totally. There was this power and there's this connectivity, and if anybody was going to know anything, especially as Gandalf the White, it's going to be Gandalf. He is tapped in.
Okay. Two things here. I'm going to send
Why
it to you,
would
and
you go-
I'll be handing it to you in a moment, Sid. Actually, because the second thing is for you. I think anybody wearing one of those rings is going to know instantly the second Sauron touches the One Ring.
That's true.
Agreed.
And the fact that he knows that Frodo is safe, or at least that the ring is safe, is because that hasn't happened yet. Question from the chat, and it's actually from Chris. For Sid, are you going to say more about Gandalf's death and resurrection? I think that got lost in the wash.
The answer is, hey, there's always next month and maybe the month after that.
Absolutely. I mean, you can do it as long as you want.
Yeah.
Well, you can
I
cover
was
it now. You
reading-
can cover it now, Sid. I mean,
Well,
there's a transition
he has an
power.
itinerary and 12 minutes left, so
I only got 12 minutes left.
yeah.
No, I think actually, let's ask the chat. How many people would like a really in-depth into Gandalf, death and resurrection?
I mean, that could
If
be
so, I will.
its own thing.
I will make it. Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm asking the chat. Do you want a short one now, or do you want a long one next month? Let the chat respond.
Yeah.
While I say other.
My vote's for next month, but I'll let you know what they say.
Okay. So I want to come back to this word I used, Matt. Pleniscience. Omniscience knows everything, only God. Pleniscience is knowing everything one needs to know. So yes, he knew the ring was moving, therefore he knew Sauron didn't have it. He didn't feel in the mind of Sauron trying to dominate him, so he knew Sauron didn't have it. But more than that, he knew to the minute when Frodo's was inside the crack of doom and when his mind broke. And we know this because he precisely timed all the events from when they were leaving Minas Tirith and at Dol Amber's suggestion, they decided to say the King Alisar indicating, look, he has the ring, right up until the ring was destroyed. He knew exactly how to advance the feint that Aragorn had the ring. It was
Yeah,
maintained till the very last instant, and
totally agree.
and that's how much more time was left. Exactly as long as it takes an eagle to fly from the Black Gate to Mount Doom.
To
You know,
unequivocally
Yeah.
prove that what you're saying is correct. Yeah, in page 928 of The Lord of the Rings, he knows instantly the realm of Sauron is ended. The ring bearer has fulfilled his quest.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
And this involves the timing of the arrival of the eagles, which means it involves Manwë, who sent the wind that the eagles flew on. It involves the timing of the breaking up of the volcanic cloud spewed out by Sauron, which is probably one of the reasons that Gandalf could not fully see into Mordor. And that involves Ulmo, because Ulmo sent the wind up the Anduin that cleared the air over Minas Tirith. And so he's in coordination with Manwë and Ulmo under Eru.
Yep.
And he is mastering it to the last minute.
But it's also his own
Hold on,
intuition as well. It's from within as well, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And that intuition, or that planiscience, is evident from the moment he shows up as Gandalf the White and clearly knows everything he needs to know about the mind of Sauron.
I think,
and so it goes all the way back
There's
to
one thing we got to touch. There's one thing we got to touch on, and that is whatever, you know, he gets reincarnated. He travels across the sea, you know, in his mind. He goes back. His spirit goes back. He comes back.
But he doesn't go across the sea. He leaves the world.
He goes to heaven. He goes straight to Eru.
Right. The way he describes it, he goes back. He comes back, but the ring is still there. People sometimes forget that, you know, how do you get the ring back? Well, the ring was still on.
It's the same body. Yeah, it's the same
body, and it's still on his. It's still on his hand. He's still laying there, time out of mind, mind out of time, and he comes back. So it's something I wanted to clear up on. But so far, everything we've talked about is supported, and I think we all agree.
It's more than supported, because it's not just Gandalf the White that has this. It's Gandalf the Grey as well. We see it in The Hobbit. He knows exactly how to coordinate Thorin's quest with his own, and he knows exactly when to stop the elves and the dwarves and the men from killing each other. And he says, the goblins are upon us. We need to act fast. He knows exactly what's happening. From the chat, by the way, Sid, they want you to go into depth into this next month, in length.
Okay.
And I just want to bring up a few things from chats here. Davis asked, did the elves take off the rings and then keep them off until the ring was cut from Sauron? Not only that, but a little while later, they waited till the ring was lost. When Isildur died and it was never recovered. It was recovered, but they didn't know about it. They knew that there wasn't a Lord of the Rings. And also, the question here, also from Davis, Planetians, how Eru keeps from being bored, I suppose, how Melkor got past his notice so badly, otherwise not much point if you know the outcome. Melkor was told the outcome, he just didn't believe it.
Yeah.
He had to be to be shown.
I think Eru keeps from being bored by creating things like hobbits. It's the small,
Sid.
He knows their destiny.
Yeah.
But he doesn't pull it off.
Sid, you're going to have to remind me at some point. There's something in a Facebook group I'm on. Somebody created this wonderful little comic strip about the creation of hobbits. And it was basically, the person's joke was that Yavanna created the hobbits. And it was sort of like the same conversation between Eru and Yavanna that he had with her husband, Aule, and the dwarves. And it was sort of like, really, Yavanna? Really? I just talked to him about this. And she holds up these little guys, you know, and she's huge, and they're even tinier, like little puppies in her hands. And he's like, okay, they're cute. Yeah, we can keep them.
I want to touch on this real quick. This is from the Silmarillion.
Go ahead.
This is great because it's related to this. the things that Morgoth or Melkor at the time cannot foresee. The citation goes like this: is from the Silmarillion. This is Eru's warning to Melkor. Mighty are the Ainur, and mighty among them is Melkor. But that he may know that all the Ainur, that I am Iluvatar, those things that ye have sung, I will show them forth. And thou, Melkor, shalt see no theme may be played that hath not its uttermost source in me, nor can any alter the music in my despite. For he that attempteth this shall prove but mine instrument in the devising of things more wonderful, which he himself hath not imagined.
I want to pick up on that and respond to what was here. But what keeps Eru from being bored? I think there are two elements. One is, even if Melkor had never fallen, remember, he created the Ainur. He taught them how to play music. He taught them how to play music creatively, going beyond the score.
To improvise.
He taught them to improvise and expand. And when he played, when he held up his baton and led the Song of the Ainur, they were going beyond anything he had yet imagined. And that would have been true even if Melkor hadn't gone off his rocker and tried to cheat. Melkor
I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Keep going.
Yeah, he knows, due to eucatastrophe, he knows that it will end well. But, he doesn't know for sure, will Gandalf fight the Lord of the Nazgul, or will that get passed on to someone else? Will Faramir and Eowyn hook up, or does that not quite work out? He genuinely doesn't know these things because he's given us the same freedom of will that he has. So it's like, he's the director, the producer, the conductor, not only of the music, but think of each age as an opera played out on stage using the music. But the actors can change everything except the ending.
Yeah, they can ad-lib, but they can't alter the music. And just to hammer home how important that is, like what passage that Matt read, that's page 5 of the Silmarillion. That's like right at the beginning. So it's at the very beginning. The world hasn't even been created yet. They just sang about it. They sang the blueprint. God hasn't actually made it yet. And he says, you can rebel, you can do a lot of things, you can sing discordant themes, but nothing you can do is going to mar the beauty of what I'm going to create. And in fact, it's going to make it more beautiful. And if you don't believe me, you'll see. We're going to have a practical demonstration of such.
And there's a beautiful example of that very early on, where Manwë and Ulmo knew that the waters of the ocean would dance with the air and there would be clouds and rain.
And snow.
No. They didn't know about snow until Melkor created unseasonable cold. And then said, wow, look at this cool snow stuff we can make.
Yeah, that's actually true.
The first example in the Silmarillion of even out of something evil and deadly, great beauty that Melkor could not have imagined.
Because he and
Eru
has these blinders on, yeah.
And Eru
which then to a large degree produced rivers.
Yeah,
absolutely, because the snow on the mountains, it melts, and then we have flowing water, we have river fish, we have clean drinking water. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, exactly. If you don't have mountains and snow melt,
you don't have rivers. You just have stagnant.
You have swamps and cesspools. So another, absolutely.
It was necessary. That's a really good point about rivers. I hadn't even thought about that, but you're absolutely 100% right. And the point also was that through the marriage of sky and water, it brings Ulmo and Manwë closer together as people, because we have to like think about what Manwë lost. He lost a brother essentially to evil. And I implore anybody who's read the Silmarillion who doesn't really understand the characters as people, read the Book of Lost Tales, where you can really get their personalities and what Manwë actually felt about his brother becoming the devil.
Really good, John. Really good.
We're out of time
And
for that, but I wanted to bring up, and because this is related to what you were talking about, Sid, a really interesting question, or theory, I should say, from the chat. This is from Tommy. Do we think that Tulkas might have had input into the creation of Bjornings or skin changers like that? Personally, if I was going to say that Avala was invested in that, Orima is the one that comes to mind. But what do you guys think?
I say let's leave that till next month and let everybody think about it.
Okay, all right. Okay. I like that.
I have. I gotta say something about that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, are we done?
Sid,
are you done?
Your thought. No, go ahead, Sid. I'll finish up on my thought.
No, I want everyone to finish but me, and then I'll close it out.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I think Tulkas's arrival and invitation late among the Valar is an attempt by Tolkien to show that Orme, the hunter of monsters, the great huntsman, wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. There needed to be a spirit of the valiant,
of a warrior
champion.
Yeah.
The noble warrior who doesn't use weapons, doesn't hunt monsters. He just wants to plow Morgoth's face up against a mountain slope just for fun.
And what's really cool about Tulkas is that he enters into creation at the same time as everybody else, but doesn't go down to the planet. He floats around bored, waiting for something exciting to happen. Yeah. And then once there's a fight, he's like, ha ha, here we go.
Yeah, I think it's a different spirit. It's a different attitude than any of the Valar. They know they need somebody like this. They're thinking, who can this be? Well, it's not really necessarily Orome because, it's a different kind of approach with Orome.
Yeah.
And Tulkas comes into this being this guy who is just the spirit of the fight for good. He wants order. He wants to follow Manwë. He is not confused about what kind of damage delivery that he's going to do to Melkor, and Melkor cannot handle him. We already know that from the first battle of the Valar, that he is way more than he can deal with up close and personal. This is like UFC style, not
Melkor
style.
For all his might, he's not very valiant. He's cowardly. He's craven.
Yeah.
I'd like to put this in a frame. Once Melkor fell and became Morgoth, he could no longer ascend into the heavens. He couldn't reach where the sun and moon were anymore. That's very explicit.
His greatest enemies.
He became earthbound. Mm-hmm. And I think that Tulkas the wrestler was the answer. Okay, I'm going to be as earthy as you are, bud. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to smash you. And I don't need weapons to do it. And I think it's a very profound insight that Tolkien had, that the Valar needed that wrestler.
Yes, 100%. And
they were not as earthy as Morgoth was.
And Sid, you talk about a frame, and then you bring that up, and I know that he abandoned the idea, but to brief, and I know we're way over time for this segment, but I can wait on my segment because this is fascinating. The concept of Dagordagorath. What happens when Melkor... Now, this is just something the elves came up with. It's a parable. It wasn't ever going to really happen. In Morgoth's Ring, Tolkien explained how it would actually happen, and it's way scarier. But the way that the elves came up with is that Melkor is going to come from above. Eärendil is going to cast him down to the earth. He'll become earthbound once more. And then it's going to be Turin that kills him. But who is going to be on the left and the right side of Turin? Tulkas and who was the other one?
Orme?
No, it was one of the Maiar. Ianwa. Tulkas and Ianwa. So those are the two greatest warriors of the Ainur. And one is the greatest with weapons, and the other is greatest without weapons. And then Turin
Yeah.
is the one that kills Melkor in this elvish parable. But also think of the four of them. We have Earendil, and then those three on the ground, an elf, a man, a Val, and a Maya.
Mm-hmm.
All together
Yes.
saying, no more.
I think it's so
And
amazing.
thereby,
I mean,
and
it's fiction, but it's
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, of course it's really cool. That's why we're
I wanna
sitting here
watch-
talking.
I want to watch that movie.
Oh, Davis has a really great, by the way, really great comment here. Just really brief. It's hard to disarm somebody who's not armed.
Yeah.
You can't take away. Tolkien is like, you can't take these away.
Yeah.
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 and that means that all four elements are now Eru's will is embodied in all the races and all the elements.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a wonderful thing from Babylon 5 where, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide.
Okay.
Is where he ends up.
I
want to do.
I might
Wait.
next month. I might talk about Melkor's return in the way that Tolkien envisioned that it might actually happen, because I just teased everybody saying it's way scarier than the way that the elves thought. The Dagor Dagroth, it's way worse. I might actually have to talk about that next month.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Make a note of that. That sounds like you guys have your segment set up already.
I think I might have it. Yeah, we'll see, because maybe something else.
I want to close out my section by giving homework so everyone can participate even more in my segment next month. Let me see. I would like to have you all think about two questions. I'm going to name 4 more powers Gandalf had, a couple of them surprising, and come up with examples. When did Gandalf use deception? When did he use terror? Both usually thought of as evil, but he was able to use them for the good. When did he actually use the power of command and the power of his voice? That's question 1. Deception, terror, power of command, power of the voice. The other one is try to come up with every single time, starting in The Hobbit, where there was something Gandalf could have done and he had a free person of Middle-earth do it instead. That was his fundamental purpose, that the free people should free themselves of the Ring and Sauron, with him guiding the way and doing only what he absolutely needed to do. So starting from the beginning of The Hobbit, what could Gandalf have done except he knew it's better if they do it themselves?
You know, Sid, how hard it is for me to not go, ooh, 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 and just start yakking right away. But I won't. I will just give a teaser that I'll go further back than The Hobbit for that second one.
That's a great idea. That's totally cool.
But let's set up my segment here. But before we do that,
let me say one more thing.
Oh.
No, John. The pre-Hobbit is yours.
Okay.
Everything from page 1 of The Hobbit till the end of The Lord of the Rings, beyond the Scouring of the Shire, is for everybody. And I want everyone out there in the chat to come up with at least one thing.
Okay.
Gandalf could have done, but it was better that the others did it.
Yeah,
you got your 2 minutes.
No, I need a bio break here. Actually, is what I was trying to say. So
I need one too. Okay.
So I'm gonna put this screen up. We're gonna take 2 minutes here. We'll be right back, guys.
And I don't have to take a bio break because I only do that on Wednesdays.
Keep talking, Matt. Keep them entertained.
Keep talking. Okay. Well, someone wanted to know what the size of Bjorn was. Well, it says in The Hobbit that Bilbo thought that he was going to be able to walk between the legs of Bjorn beneath his tunic, and tunic typically goes to the knee. So if hobbits are about 40 to 41 inches average, and human physiology is 25% of total height, that means that Bjorn would scale out to be about 13 feet and 3 inches in human form. When he changes to bear form, there's no indication that he becomes bigger necessarily. He just changes form. However, he's got a bigger girth. The only bears that were about 13 feet are basically slightly prehistoric, um, the ice ages actually, and there are species of bears that total out to be 13 to 14 feet, and they weigh in excess of
This is what I come back to.
2,500 pounds. So Bjorn was indeed, as the passages say, was a very large, great black lord bear, and going through orcs and wargs by each swath of his paw and his claws is an accurate depiction of how big he was. So there's some rough ideas about how some of this can be deduced with a little bit of passage help. And that is my presentation during our structured bio break.
I'm back, but we'll wait. I'll wait on the screen till Sid comes back.
Oh, that was a lot of fun, John.
Moogle,
You really missed a really.
No, I didn't miss much. I just got back when you were talking about the weight of bears and such. Moogle had an interesting question. What would the Lord of the Rings be like if Tolkien was more of a pulp writer? And I think that you see that in any number of pulp fantasy that's out there, the sort of dime store novels things. And I know that some people are very fond of this sort of thing. I'm not casting any sort of aspersions on it, but just read a Game of Thrones if that's what you want,
Well, any kind of pulp fiction like this wouldn't have been possible with Tolkien because the concepts, the characters, the histories automatically don't lend themselves.
He started a thriller that was a sequel to The Lord of the Rings, but then he said, "I'm just writing a thriller, and I don't think it's worth doing." But if you want that, in the book, The Peoples of Middle Earth, there is a 13-page prelude called the New Shadow, which was the sequel to The Lord of the Rings that he started. It was going to be this sort of, I guess you could call it a pulp fiction in a sense. It's certainly pretty snappy.
I, as a writer, knowing Tolkien as a writer, I think it was more than just it wasn't interesting. I think it probably made him nauseous.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. His final 3 words on it were "not worth doing."
Yeah, but I'm saying I bet that came out of his belly.
Oh, it really did. He put everything into that. I mean, because if you read some of the last few stories that he wrote, the final version of the Fall of Gondolin that didn't get very far, but was beautiful. Some of his very best writing. And what was the other thing that he wrote right before he died?
Well, it was Aule and Yavanna. It was the very last chapter of the Silmarillion. It's beautiful.
Yeah, but that was the last thing that was added to the Silmarillion. But there was a lot of things he wrote after that only got published way later. I'm just thinking about like what he was. Yeah, I'm thinking of in terms of his whole body of work. Of Turin is coming to Gondolin is one of the last things he wrote. Some of the stuff about Galadriel and Celeborn was a lot of the last few things that he wrote as well, and it's really good stuff. Okay, where's my timer? I don't normally have to step away, but I had to step away there. Before I start, Davis said, this is interesting to you, Matt. Davis thinks the giants were about 60 feet tall.
The stone giants?
Well, I assume, I guess you could say that they were probably around, I don't think they were 60 feet tall, but where he's coming from with this was the stride length reported in the Green Dragon, and you worked backwards from there. And that's a good way to work, except you have to remember that pub tales are exaggerations.
I have to answer the question. Thank you for the question. I have a mixed view about how the movies depicted them and not. Yes, I think they are stone giants. No, I do not think they are gargantuan rock'em sock'em robots like we saw in the movie The Hobbit. However,
Oh, wait a minute.
I
Hold.
do.
I'm sorry, Matt, but there's been a little clarification here. Are you talking about the conversation, Davis, in the very beginning of the Lord of the Rings? You said the Green Dragon. That was actually a different pub. It was the Ivy Perch or something like that. That was a tree, a horn that they saw.
Yeah.
And
Scale out. Yeah.
yeah, and trees come in all sorts of sizes. 60 feet's a bit extreme. Maybe a California redwood, but I don't.
California redwoods and ponderosa pines are 150 to 200 feet tall.
Yeah, so that would be a small one then. Yeah, but
there's more evidence showing. There's more evidence, not clear, but there's more
Yeah.
evidence showing that Ents are between 14 and 18 feet tall.
absolutely agree with that. What,
If,
but
let me,
what
let
I'm
me
just,
finish
I know
that.
I'm going to let you finish, but my
Okay.
last thought on that is that you just have to remember this is a bunch of old heads sitting in a pub telling tall tales and talking about things that they have no conception of. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. No, thank you. What he's talking about is a good starting point, but there's other evidence that indicate that these guys were not that tall. They were stone giants, yes, for sure. They were not as big as the ones we saw in The Hobbit, okay? But they were larger than trolls. And I believe they did exist. There's evidence that Tolkien, obviously wrote about them. But if I had to guess in size and whether or not being 60 feet and bigger than trolls, I would say they were something probably like 20 feet. And to a hobbit, proportionally, that would be like a human looking at something that was maybe 40 feet. If you're
Yeah.
looking at proportional mathematics, so maybe not 60 feet exaggerated, 40 feet to a human, 20 feet to a hobbit if they had seen them or heard about them, blah blah blah.
Especially
So
from a
this is where
distance.
exactly, and so because a hobbit is half a halfling, half the size of a man and a halfling, you look at proportional ratios to the stories and things, and I think they're borderline 20 feet, which is pretty big. This is going to be bigger than 5 to 6 feet bigger than the biggest one of the trolls. So it's
And there's a lot
really a
of
good point.
variance there too.
And they live
One
up in the
quick,
hills and they throw rocks at each other, but they're not 60 feet plus. And of
Yeah.
course, in the Hobbit, they were hundreds of feet in size. So
Well, they weren't
one,
ever described in The Hobbit. They were just off in the distance throwing rocks. Go ahead, Sid.
right.
Matt, given you've gone this far, tell us, how big was Beorn?
I'll make him louder. CW.
Okay.
Oh no, he talked about that while you were in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Well,
Bjorn,
just
okay.
say it so I can.
The rough estimate here is in the Hobbit. Bilbo describes Bjorn as a giant man whose tunic he could crawl. He could go between his legs without stooping. That's the exact wording. Now, if that's the case, tunics typically go to the knee, and if a hobbit is about 40 to 41 inches tall, roughly, we know human physiology is 25% of total height to the knee. That means if you take the average height of a hobbit, which is Bilbo, and you multiply it times 4, you have that come out to 180 something inches, which is 13 foot and 3 inches. Now, if you're off by 3 inches, that's fine. I'm not saying it's exactly, but he's about 13 feet.
About, yeah.
And
If you,
About the size of a
think about-
Balrog.
yeah, yes, exactly. And Balrogs are average about 15 in my estimation. But he is a big
I would say
dude.
14, but that's splitting hairs, right?
Sure, that sure is.
Yeah.
Now, last thing is when he turns to a bear, it's his mass that changes.
Okay.
Now we
Let's
have
not
evidence.
wait. You already talked about this, and I know Sid wasn't here for it, but I want to get to my
Okay,
section.
They're about 3,500 pounds at that height.
I just want to say one quick sentence. That means that proportionally, Hobbit to Beorn is the same as elf or man to Avala, for your other comments and that you've said it other times.
Mhm.
Yep.
So Tolkien had this thing about running around being knee high to a god.
Yes.
It keeps going up.
Yes. That's very, very true.
And just to reply to you, Davis, because he said hobbits have good size and distance judgment, judging from their aim. The having good aim was specifically a Bilbo thing. It wasn't like a hobbit trait in general. And also, like I said, we're talking about a bunch of really old guys drinking and telling tall tales. And a lot of the things that they're saying are not true, because think of all the things they said about Bilbo in that same chapter. But let's get us on track here.
I hate to say this, but you're dead wrong. If you read is of hobbits or about hobbits, it says very clearly that all hobbits are good at killing animals with small stones.
Well, it said that I remember it saying that Bilbo was unusually good at it. But I'm going to bring that down now. You're talking about in the Fellowship?
Nevertheless, he's not drunk. He's not drunk. He's not old. He's got good estimation.
Wait, who's he? Now, who are you talking about here?
I'm talking about Bilbo. And so when he's talking about whether he thinks he can go
I'm not talking. No, Matt, I'm not talking. I'm saying that they're not 60 feet tall. I'm agreeing with you.
You're back to giants again.
Yeah. Okay, so wait, I do want to start, but now I'm interested in what Sid said about of hobbits, which I have right here. Concerning hobbits is actually the name of it. Let's see. Very unobtrusive, never studied any magic, little people smaller than dwarves. I'm sort of skimming here. Peace and prosperity. Okay, this is going into more of what they look like. Let's see. Earliest tells a glimpse of time when they dwelt in the upper vales of the Anduin. Okay, now we're talking about Harfoots and Stores and Fallowhides. Okay, they learn their letters. They write like the Dunedain do. They keep good calendars. Shire reckoning. And then they talk about how big the Shire is. This might be it here. At no time had hobbits of any kind been warlike, and they had never fought amongst themselves. In olden days they had, of course, been often obliged to fight to maintain themselves in a hard world, but in Bilbo times that was very ancient history. The last battle before the story opens, and indeed the only one that had ever been fought within the borders of the Shire, was beyond living memory, the Battle of the Green Fields. They talk about Bandabras Took. And then they go on about the museum in Meikle Delvin, the Matham House. They're curiously tough, difficult to daunt or kill, unwearingly fond of good things, but not least because they could, when put it to it, do without them, could survive rough handling. They shot well with the bow, as it says, for they were keen-eyed and sure at the mark. And it does say, if a hobbit stooped for a stone, it was well to get quickly under cover. So you're right about that, but the point that I was making, though, was that we're talking about somebody seeing something in a distance and then describing it poorly.
Agreed.
You know, that was the point that I was making. And that doesn't really have to do with aim, which is less, that's more hand-eye coordination than vision. For example, I have good aim. I have terrible vision. It seems strange, but it has to do with hand-eye coordination. Okay, let's see. Yeah, exactly. That's how I come to the 14 feet conclusion. All right, I'm going to give myself 2 minutes here and want to set up my segment. So I decided we should do something fun. Not that Matt's section wasn't fun and Sid's section wasn't fun, because they were both very fun, at least for me. But this is something that we can have fun with. We're going to enter into one of my favorite places to visit, the realm of surmise. Now, there are borders there, so we can't get too crazy. We have to follow the laws of the land. However, let us enter the realm of surmise and talk about one of the least fleshed out characters in The Lord of the Rings, which is Legolas. So Legolas is someone that we barely know anything about, even though he's one of the 9 walkers. He is a member of the Fellowship of the Ring. He has a few great war feats to his name. He has some very good dialogue, especially with Gimli. But what do we really know about him as a person? And I would like for us to look at the 3 great mysteries of Legolas. We know more about the first age Legolas, which is a totally separate character, than we do about third age Legolas. We know more about characters in The Lord of the Rings that appeared in a single scene or only had a handful of lines, like Beregond. Was a character that really only had a few chapters and mostly conversed with Pippin.
Imrahil.
Imrahil, yeah, we know a lot more about him. Erkenbrand, we know a lot about him. We don't know anything about Legolas. So here are the three great mysteries of Legolas as a character. One, what does he actually look like? What color is his hair? How tall is he? All that stuff. Secondly, how old is he? Roughly when was he born? And lastly, what is his family structure? We know he has a father, Thranduil. What happened to his mother? Is she still around? Who is his mother? Does he have any brothers or sisters? Did he ever get married? Did he ever have children? Or did he sail to the west with Gimli still single and childless? Did he find love in the Undying Lands? These are the mysteries. I'm going to set us up for a half hour here. And of course, I would love participation from the chat here because, like I said, we're guessing. We don't know the answers to these. Tolkien never wrote about Legolas, except to say that he accomplished the least out of all the members of the Fellowship. Of the surviving members, I don't think he was counting Boromir although Boromir accomplished quite a lot. But after the war, they said Legolas did the least. He worked on the gardens of Ithilien. He helped beautify Faramir's palace. He traveled with Gimli a bit. Eventually, he made a boat, and from the havens at Dol Amroth, sailed to the west with Gimli. Let's start with the first thing. Let's talk about the hair color thing. What color do we really think Legolas's hair was?
I have a full view. I was under the impression that all of the elves of Greenwood the Great, as Sindarin elves, were almost not blonde, which is something that arose in relation to dwelling in the Undying Lands for the most part, but were, dark hair. I'm not going to say black or brown, but definitely
Dark, yeah.
dark.
It's interesting. You're right. You're right. Usually it was the Vanyar elves that were blonde, which were originally the Tatyar, the first peoples. And there's less of them than any other type of elf out there. However, we have good evidence that Thranduil was blonde, which is from The Hobbit. The dream that Bombor had described a king with a crown of flowers and golden hair. Now that doesn't mean his son is blonde. Feanor had black hair. Some of his sons had black hair. Some of his sons had red hair. But it gives us some look in the direction. I always imagine Legolas as being dark-haired. Maybe darker blonde. I don't know. But what do you see when you close your eyes and you think Legolas specifically, Sid?
It's really hard to get the movie out.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to not think Orlando Bloom, right? Who, by the way, has dark hair.
Yeah.
I just got a beautiful image. What if he had ringlets? I'm not saying I believe this, but I like it. What if it was as long as the blonde in the movie, but he had ringlets?
What if he had dreadlocks?
No, that's not too much.
Yeah, it is too much, I know. I mean, I always imagined him as being sort of brunette. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I've got two reasons why I think it's more blonde. One, the only evidence we have is his father.
Mm-hmm.
We have no information about the mother, as we're going to get to in a little bit. But there's another thing going on here in theme, which is the Celeborn is described as being silver-haired, and he is from Lothlorien, and so is Galadriel. The only other forest kingdom there is.
He's from Doriath, is where he's from.
That's correct.
Yeah.
He's from, which is a forest kingdom. He's described as being silver-haired. His father, Thranduil, is described as being golden-haired, and then the only other main kingdom in Middle Earth, not counting Grey Havens, but is Elrond, which is Rivendell, which is not a forest kingdom. It's a glade
It's a
river.
valley. Yeah.
It's a valley
It's a
river
dell.
system,
It's
and
literally a dell. A riven
it,
dell.
it correct.
Yeah.
And he is black haired. So honestly, I will tell you, ever since I first read it, and this goes back to the 1970s, um, and researched it in more in the 80s, and kind of put some of this stuff together. I'm like, he's probably blonde. He's probably golden haired in some way or fashion, and I've always envisioned him that way. And I think there's just more evidence. I wouldn't say conclusive, but I'm going with 60 to 70% that he's probably blonde haired in some way. And so I've always visioned him that way.
I feel like I was a little bit tainted by the Ralph Bakshi movie to always see him as being blonde haired. But
Well,
at the same time,
yeah.
before I saw that, I was imagining dark hair, but then I saw that where he replaced Glorfindel, and who absolutely was blonde, despite not being Vanyar. He's Noldor, so we can't always go by that sort of thing. Sid, you have something to say?
Mhm.
I have two thoughts. One is, I believe that silver-haired, that somewhere something I read in the last month, and it was Tolkien speaking. He said that when elves get elderly by elvish standards, whatever that is, we may be talking 10,000 years plus, they grow to having silver hair. I'm not aware of any distinctly young elves having silver hair. You guys can correct me on that. And the other is, I think it'd be kind of fun.
Elrond's wife.
Okay.
Celebrian. It's the same. Caleb is silver.
Right.
Celebrian, Celeborn. I think Celeborn probably always had silver hair because he was named that.
Yeah, but Celebrian may have been named that because she was named after her father, not because her own hair was silver. We don't know.
I mean, I don't know. That's sort of like saying that that Mithros was named that because he was angry.
Well, just for sakes of throwing spaghetti on the wall here,
That's what we're doing.
is okay. Celeborn, I love to be in spaghetti mode, but the Celeborn is about 8,300 years old, so he's about three. He's about three.
He's
and
probably
a half,
a bit
4.
old. He's probably a bit older than that, even.
Well, but he's not as old as
Yeah.
Celeborn. I mean, as far as old as Círdan.
No,
So
but Círdan is in the 11,000 range.
It's 11,400, and so
Yeah.
he's described as being as not an older man, but he's an old man with a gray beard, and so there's um some kind of entropy related aging going on. Not that they're not immortal, but there is definitely an aging thing going on because he's described as being an old man, and that's a narrative description.
Mhm.
So there's something going on with the translation rates there. However, I would say that what Sid said about being 10,000 years older, there's no evidence that says that that Celeborn is older than about 8,500 years old. He's about 88,000 to 8,300. So I think silver is just a way of describing his particular type of golden hair. Silver doesn't necessarily mean that he is aging. It could be blonde hair that looks really silver. I mean, kind of
You say a
silverish.
platinum blonde, in other words.
Yeah, we have that. So
Yeah.
I don't see that. And he's not described as being older than Galadriel. So
Well, he is literally older than her, but he doesn't look aged.
correct. And so I think it's more likely his hair is silver in tone as opposed to silver in gray and old.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Given all this, I just want to throw a wacky idea about Legolas.
Okay.
We mentioned blonde and redhead. I want him to be strawberry blonde. What the heck?
I mean, anything's possible. I mean, like I said, and let's go into this second bit. His mother never mentioned. Now, this was a thing with the Sindar. They never mentioned the wives. The only Sindar that we know the wife is Thingol because he married Melian, an angel. We don't know Thranduil's wife's name. We don't know Orifer's wife's name. Any of these kings, these important people that were in the Sindar culture, their names of their wives is never recorded. It's never in their family trees. Legolas obviously has a mother. He didn't spring out of a hole in the ground. What did she look like? Who was she? Where is she? Is she there the whole time and we just don't spend any time with her? Did she sail to the west? Did she get killed and therefore is in the west? The Hobbit movies made up a whole ridiculous story that they basically stole from Elrond anyway, but let's not get into that too much.
Let me interject first on this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the theory that she was gone or had been captured or something. This is my own theory, and just hear me out. I think that Tolkien has a very, very common habit of depicting the royalty of the elves as having a very symbiotic, respectful, old-fashioned, traditional relationship between male and females.
Mm-hmm.
And Tolkien does a very good job at describing the fact that the women who are married to these men are very educated. They are very equal. They are very listened to. They are not dismissed. They are not dismissed. They are often the bearers of great wisdom, and they are not ignored. And I think what happened with this particular situation is because there's enough text given to Thranduil without a queen mentioned. Obviously, she would be queen because she's absent. Maybe she really was absent. We know that Legolas was the child that had a mother, but why is she not fitting into the normal mode of depictions for kings and queens from the Silmarillion onward? And I think what's happened in some kind of subcreation fill-in here is that she was dead. She maybe didn't go back to the Undying Lands, but maybe she was captured. Maybe something happened, and this is where you get this fill-in. And so I think that's what's kind of happened. I think that's kind of become kind of the thing or the way of thinking about it.
I think
I'm going to take the opposite view, purely in a fanfic. We are free to choose mode, throwing spaghetti.
Yeah, no,
John,
that's what I want. Yeah,
and we know we have the tragic story of Elrond's wife because it was a tragic story.
Yeah.
And I think if something tragic had happened,
we would have heard about it.
Queen of the Elves, we would have heard about it.
Yeah.
Now I have a more technical question.
Mm-hmm.
Do we, and you guys know this, and I don't know, and I have a reason for thinking it's not true. Do we have any stories of any elves who lived in Greenwood the Great sailing to the Undying Lands, to Aman?
I'm assuming other than Legolas, you're saying.
Right, before
because we know that Legolas did.
This is an important theme.
I mean, usually they wound up in the West the hard way, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like Thranduil's father. We don't have those stories. I mean, we have stories of similar cultures, which would be the pre-Galadriel and pre-Celeborn Lothlorien was a very similar Sylvan culture that adopted Sindar leaders. And we have an attempt to sail to the west that ended tragically because Amroth drowned. And Amroth is a character that was originally going to be Galadriel's son and then was moved around to be the king before she came to Lorien. But no, we don't have that. But what's interesting is the words that Galadriel said to Legolas, that we weren't told that, but until way later. She told him to beware of the baying of the gulls because it would change him, and it did.
I want to take that one step further. I deeply believe that every member of the Nine had two destinies. One destiny was in the Third Age, what they needed to do for their part so that the Third Age would have not only a eucatastrophe, the ring would be destroyed, Sauron would be gone, but a eucatastrophe with the best possible ending and the best possible beginning of the Fourth Age, such that, Merry and Pippin, by bringing in the Ents, took out Saruman. Taking out Saruman saved Éomer and Éowyn, and they went on to be king of Rohan and princess of Ithilien, and so forth and so on. But also, I believe that every member of the Nine was a harbinger of the ultimate destiny of their race by the end of the Fourth Age. The Fourth Age is called the Age of Men, but if you read the text closely, it is the age of the beginning of men, implying that at the end of the Fourth Age, the scenario described in concerning hobbits, where we don't know about any of these people anymore. Hobbits are either gone or hiding. Elves are either hiding or gone to the west. The reason I truly believe that Galadriel's prophecy said that Legolas was the harbinger of the Sylvan elves going to Aman.
Sorry,
And
Sid. I just have to. Harbinger. Just have to. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I thought that's what I said. Harbinger. And obviously, then Gimli was the harbinger of the dwarves going to Aman. And this is because everything Tolkien was writing has to end as a prehistory of, heaven forbid,
yes, us.
a United States with President Trump. Who we are today.
I just remembered what Wa was. It was the theoretical Western continent.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because you said United States. I'm like, yes. Now, not only are you... I think that definitely she sailed to the West. And I think that she got caught up. She might have been traveling. She got caught up. She heard some birds. Couldn't resist it. I think that you're right about Legolas being the harbinger of the elves leaving. And I think Thranduil left as well, because Tolkien wrote a poem called The Last Ship. I have it here. It's in The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. And it's about a maiden named Firiel, one of Tolkien's favorite names that he used over and over again, who was invited onto the very last ship to sail west out of Middle-earth by some elves, 3 elvish kings, which is, questionable what if they were really kings or if this is just the way that she saw them. I think that Olmo involved himself. She got stuck in the mud. She couldn't join them, and they sailed off. Círdan and Celeborn, we know, were on the last ship. Are they really kings? They're lords, but she would see them as kings. Sort of like 3 kings, 3 rings for the elven kings includes Galadriel. She's not a king. She's not even a queen. She's a lady. But this is poetry we're talking about. And the poetic version is always different from the prose version in its language, if not its intent. Who is the 3rd king? Thranduil, in my opinion. And I think if we think of Legolas as this harbinger, or even his mother as a pre-harbinger, why would Galadriel warn him? Because she's seen it happen. To his people specifically. All other elves already know this sort of thing. The Sindar and the Sylvan elves, maybe not necessarily. Maybe they do need an old lady to tell them that. Now, let's talk about age, because this is leading beautifully into it. His mother, obviously, we don't know how old Legolas was. The movies invented some nonsense about him being born in 87 of the Third Age. That's nothing to do with the books.
I know one thing.
Go ahead.
From his own word, 500 years of men is a relatively short passage of time for him.
And he saw Gimli and Aragorn as almost being like children in terms of their age. Exactly. Aragorn was 88 years old at the time. Gimli was 139 years at the time, which would be a young adult to an elf, but Legolas was also being teasing in that scene.
I agree, but he specifically said, either in that scene, I think it's in that scene, but maybe another one.
It's like right before it.
But he said, yeah, but 500 years is but a small amount of time to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me implies put him at least in the low thousands.
At the very, I always saw him as being a similar age to Arwen. You know, like right around there. You know, but here's the thing. Let's talk about.
How old was Arwen?
About very early Third Age. I believe she was born in the 1st century of the Third Age. I know her brothers were born like right at the end of the Second Age. And but it was like basically, you know, because Elrond was married right at the end of the Second Age. But let's talk about the time period. And here's an important thing to talk about. And you mentioned this, Sid, about how elvish queens are really important. And they have very important functions, and they're seen as equals. Thranduil's father gets goaded into doing something that he doesn't like to do, which is to join with Gil-galad and go to fight Sauron. And he doesn't really listen to Gil-galad because he's like, you're not my king. And he charges when he shouldn't charge, and his forces get really, really wrecked. And he dies. And in Unfinished Tales, we are told that Thranduil is leading his people home, and they're about a third of what they were before. Now, it's important to note, Legolas was not created when The Hobbit was written. That's why we don't hear even a peep of the king having a son. Obviously, he was either there or he was elsewhere. He is a character that existed. He is definitely old enough to have existed during The Hobbit, as you just pointed out, Sid. Here's an interesting thing, though. Thranduil goes to the Lonely Mountain. He does not bring Legolas with him. Why? Obviously, the literary reason is the character wasn't created yet. But the reason within the narrative is somebody has to hold down the fort at home. So,
or somebody has to become king.
Yeah.
If Thranduil.
Absolutely. Now, when Underher leaves Greenwood the Great to go all the way to Mordor, he brings his son with him. This tells me that whoever Legolas's mother was in Greenwood the Great during the War of the Last Alliance. Elves like to have their children right after they're married.
Yeah.
So this tells me that Legolas was probably a baby during the War of the Last Alliance. So amending what I said earlier, maybe he was born at the very end of the Second Age.
My own research has it close to that. My own research has it at Third Age 87. But
that's exactly what the movie said.
I think the first age of the Third Age, the first century of the Third Age, is good. But let's just talk about something real quick. Even if it's at the late second age, which John is proposing, I don't disagree with it necessarily. But if it's TA 87, this makes him around very close to 3,000 years old.
Yeah.
2990, something like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, we all sometimes talk about exactness. I agree. I don't want to try to be exact, but I do like ballparks. And I especially like bracketing when ballparks are pretty darn supported by enough evidence. So brackets are good for me. So he's about 2,900 years old, maybe 3,000 roughly. That's good enough. Anyway, that's what I've got to say about that estimate.
And by the way, I was wrong about Arwen because in my head I was thinking 2,900 years for Arwen. That's when she died.
That's correct.
Yeah, but she was born in 241 of the Third Age, so she's a little younger than I was thinking. But I think Legolas is probably, he's probably a bit older than her, not by a lot, but then again, what we would consider a lot and what elves would consider a lot are two different things. Mm-hmm. I like the idea that he was probably born right before they went to war with Sauron.
I want to throw in an idea related to what you just said, which is I was thinking about, well, and this also is related to did he have brothers and sisters and all of that. was he a crown prince? Was he heir to the throne of Thranduil?
Yeah, I
And I
love
thought
that
about
you're bringing that up because they never call him Prince.
Right, they call him son of Thranduil.
Yeah.
And I think most people think only child, but there's a thing about that. Even if he was, so what? Why does it matter if you're the heir to the throne when the king is an immortal?
That's what Galadriel went through. That's why she went to Middle Earth. She wanted to
Exactly.
she wanted to have her own. I always said she could have just formed her own land in Aemon, but she didn't think that. She was caught up in what Feanor said, which was caught up in what Melkor said, and they all hated each other, which I think is hilarious. But
Well, no,
Galadriel was going. I mean, yeah, she was the firstborn child of Finarfin. So what? She's not going to become queen.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's a reframing to say that Legolas was sitting there for 3,000 years, and let's just say for the moment he was either the only or the eldest son. So he was, in a technical sense, heir to the throne. It might never have occurred to him.
Yeah.
Except maybe when his dad went off to the Battle of Five Armies.
I mean, the concept of a crown prince is a very, very mortal thing.
Exactly. That's my point. And to start to think of it in the immortal frame, it just doesn't carry a lot of weight. And it doesn't, he's not going to drink any less at those wonderful elvish parties we learned about in the Hobbit.
If there's any place to party, it's with Thranduil, right? He puts on a good party. Either him or the hobbits, or they think Thranduil would have better food. So yeah, he could have brothers and sisters. Yeah. We don't know. Do we think he ever got married? Whether in Middle Earth or in the Undying Lands?
I think so. And here's why I think this. This might be funny to people, but I'm going to go with it. He built his own ship. He sails out of the Grey Havens.
No. Southern Havens.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. He sails to the Undying Lands.
With Gimli. Yeah.
With Gimli. He's probably well known. He's known. He's known for his feats. He's known.
He's going to be a popular guy.
By Gandalf. Yeah. Gandalf is going to tell. He's going to be one of the 9 travelers. He's going to be relatively young. He's going to be sailing over there with a dwarf, and he's going to be a rock star. And he's going to come off. He's going to come off in Valinor, and every hot little maiden is going to be like, "Holy shit!"
Oh, okay? whoa! The language. Hold on now.
Holy ship.
Ship. Yeah.
No.
I don't know how it came out, but I always say ship. Because he came over on a boat. So
for the purposes of YouTube, he said ship the first time.
Yes. He's gonna say these little elven maidens, these little she-elves, are gonna be all over him, and there's no reason to believe at his age
he's gonna find a wife. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm gonna go one step further with all that. In all of that,
Matt just said everything I was going to say anyway, so go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we're right, Galadriel was making him prophetically the first of the Sylvan Elves come to Aman. He was an exotic guy too.
Yeah,
he was
the first to come on a boat anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And not one that Círdan didn't have to make him when he did it himself. Not anybody could do that.
But also he's related to Oropher, and he's the son of Thranduil. Holy smokes!
Which makes him a distant relative of Thingol.
Yeah. Yes.
The boat on his own says he's favored by Ulmo, or he would have
100%. And Ossé as well.
So, boy, now I'm getting the hot straight. I'm straight.
I know, right? Okay, so, I agree that he probably wasn't married in Middle-earth because he would have taken his family with him to the west, maybe.
I agree.
But he took Gimli. Here's a question. I didn't even think about this till just now. The elves that sail to the west, the Undying Lands comprises of many countries. They can go anywhere they want. They're not limited. Do we think that at some point he goes to Tol Eressëa and meets the other Legolas?
No reason to think not.
I would hope so, right?
What do you mean the other Legolas?
The Legolas from the Fall of Gondolin. He sailed to the west. He lived in Tol Eressëa, and he adapted his name to Quenya. He changed it to Lycolossa, which is the same thing, green leaf, in Quenya instead of
I
Sindarin.
think if he can get away from all the honeys that are trying
all the ladies,
to court him, he might be able to get over to Tol Eressëa and check out his namesake. But think about it. He's got enough time, so the odds are that if you're talking about this kind of time and that kind of immortality, he's going to get around and check out everything. So yeah, I think sure.
I think he probably landed in Tol Eressëa. I think Tol Eressëa was the usual.
That tends to be the outpost.
Right, and then some go further in. But if what we're saying is true, to get to the ridiculous, so he has something like a couple of thousand years to do a lot of dating and take his pick.
Yeah, but you know how elves are. They just immediately fall in love all at once. So all these women are going to be like, hey, and he's just going to immediately see the one and be like, you.
That is true.
You know?
That's true. That's the way it's described.
Yeah. But yeah, the other Legolas, he changed his name to Lycolossa, but
and
he's
the likelihood
still
that
Legolas.
and the likelihood that he doesn't have kids is very low.
I mean, you know, can you think of very many childless marriages with elves? There's not a lot of them. Usually, it's because some tragedy would prevent it, but usually they have children.
Yeah, he's going to be a rock star. Whoever he falls in love with is going to be like, can we have at least a couple kids? I mean, there's just no way that conversation isn't happening.
Sid?
How many of the sons of Feanor had children?
2 of them.
The 5 didn't.
Actually, I'm sorry. There were 2 that were married.
No.
Only 2 of them married. One did not have children. The other, obviously, was Celebrimbor.
The ones that didn't were fighting too much and died too early to have any.
Yeah, there were only 2 of his sons that had wives at all, and only one had a kid.
Yeah.
If you're immortal, and all the women go out and have 7 kids, you're going to have an overpopulation problem really fast.
But that's why they calm down after a while. The 7 kids stop being a thing after a while.
I think more specifically, I believe that the impulse to have that many children was directly related to the expansion of the elvish population.
100%, yeah.
On both continents.
Hey, I need some time to talk about
that rapidly slowed
Wait, hold on.
I need some time to talk about entropy conversion.
No, we're gonna have to wait till next time because we're already going a little late here. But
no, we're gonna have a 5-hour show.
No, we're not. 5-hour
Break
show. We're not doing that. I'm sorry. Hey, Deb, how's it going? Walter. Walter.
So Matt,
I'm sorry.
I say Matt. We'll finish with the.
Let's finish with this because we're just about out of time here, and I want to close it out here.
You got to cover your thing. Looks, age. And
let
family.
me. I'm trying to do it.
All right.
But I wanted to address something from chat. I've been trying to bring this up for like 5 minutes now. Right. Dylan is asking, do we think that Thingol would have been reincarnated by the time that Legolas got there? Yeah, he probably got reincarnated sometime in the First Age. It doesn't take that long.
No.
He would have been held a little while because of his arrogance in Mandos, but not for too long of a time. All he has to do is repent, really. But okay, so we agree. He goes to the west. He gets married. Probably has a few children. Probably meets his mother. She's probably there. I think she went there willingly, not by being killed. Because as Sid pointed out, we would have heard something about that. That's a tragic story. It would have been like the Celebrian story. I think that he would have met his whole family there, really. Maybe even he meets the other Legolas from Gondolin, and they have the Spider-Man pointing meme there with each other. Probably sat for a portrait together, if they have that sort of thing over there. There was a ginger elf in the Hobbit movies. Was that in the books? That character was not in the book. You're talking about Toriel, which is a constructed character they made for the Hobbit. It means daughter of the forest. But there are absolutely elves with red hair.
Yep.
But I
Mid-choice.
wanted to reply also to something that Sid said. This is the abject failure of Feanor as a patriarch. He has 7 children, 1 grandchild. I mean, you think about that. That's messed up.
It's a little messed up.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about some things you said earlier before the show started,
Yep.
which is things that people don't know. Letter 144, Tolkien says he is of the royal house, so he is technically the prince. He's the only known child of the king, so he is a prince. That's why it becomes a thing. Another interesting thing
Well,
is
what Sid was asking was he the crown prince, meaning was he the next in line for the throne?
only because we assume he was the only son or child.
Yeah, the only one we know of.
Right. He carried a long white knife, a katana type weapon, which is where the movies come up with that. That's in the passages as well.
It was mentioned in the Two Towers.
It was. That's correct. That's the source. Correct.
When he ran out of arrows and
Yep.
kept killing.
He said it was knife work. Yep.
I don't want to get into this in the next session, but I am going to discuss the fact that it is known that Círdan is 11,400 years old, and he's described very clearly as being an old man with white hair and a beard, which is very uncommon for elves. Now, we take a look at the physiology of that, yeah.
We can't get into too much because it is very late, but I will just say it happens to elves under moments of incredible stress as well.
Sure.
Like it happened to Gwyndor.
Well, he was in the Grey Haven, so he wasn't in the middle of it for a long time.
But what was his greatest desire? What was Círdan all about? He, more than anything, wanted to go to Valinor.
And he also wanted to be a bridge to Valinor for people who wanted to be there.
But he had to give that up out of loyalty to Thingol, lost the chance to do so, and then the Valar gave him a purpose. He didn't necessarily ask for this, but they gave him a purpose, and they gave him an incredibly deep insight that is the greatest of all the elves. His foresight and his insight, almost on the level of Gandalf, which is what Sid was talking about earlier. This takes its toll on him. He is starting to fade.
Turn your hair white, guys.
Yeah.
So I want to go on with this because it's going to be quick. Let me finish it. It's
all right. As long as we're not taking too much time, because we do got to end.
It's not. And you can look it up and verify yourself. But he's described as this way. And when you take this entropic look at some of this aging and worry and age, it's interesting that it comes out to about a 200 to 1, 200 years to 1 ratio. For example, 11,400 years divided by 200 is about 56 years old, 56, 57 years old. If you take the same entropic decay for the age of Legolas, which is the subject of this section, he comes out to be about 16 years old. Now, when you take the same conversion of a 200 to 1 in entropic decay, Arwen comes out to be 14 years old, which is the exact betrothal age during the medieval period.
Mm-hmm. Well, medieval period doesn't have anything to do with the Lord of the Rings.
No,
but I wanted to point out that
it's an interesting tie.
In this book here, The Nature of Middle-earth, there is a whole section. It's chapter 19, Elvish Life Cycles, that talks about, very similar to what you're talking about. The numbers that you're saying aren't what Tolkien wrote, but he talks about life years versus actual years, which is basically how the elves do age. Now, in terms of fading, which is what's starting to happen to Círdan, it happens because the spirit starts to, the Theia starts to overwhelm the body, the Hroar. And what we know about Círdan is he's been under this stress for a long time of being the closest that he can be without actually being where he wants to be. He's been in Middle-earth longer than any other elf that's still there, but also his spirit was boosted by the Valar. He has a stronger spirit than all the other elves in Middle Earth, and that's taking its toll on his body, and that's why he's old.
Totally agree. I'm just saying that if you carry out the conversion, it shows that Legolas, for all the facts we have, is a young prince. He's about 16, fully functional. Obviously, he's very deadly, but also that Arwen is at that age of, you know, I understand the pushback, but in the medieval age, which is his kind of feeling like it is the way he writes these kingdoms and everything, that she's at 14. It's an interesting theme there, and it's interesting.
You also
Now,
have to remember that Tolkien as a person was not even allowed to date until he was 21.
Right, and I know there's judgment on all the whole 14-year-old thing, but as we know, this culturally, in the years when people only lived to about 48 years old before they were dead, 14 was an accepted.
Well, that's not true, actually. The low average lifespan in that time was because of infant mortality. That skews the curve.
Skews the numbers, yeah. That's true. Yeah. But it is also true that betrothal was a very common thing all over the world at 14 to 15 years old.
But that's also, and not to get too into this subject because it's sensitive, but that's also because of women as a commodity in that time, which, as we talked about, the elves don't think that way.
I am not making that comparison. All I'm saying is the 200-to-1 ratio is a very interesting thing, that he comes out to 16 and she comes out to 14. As far as, of course, she's thousands of years old. She's 27.
Well, yeah, no, I agree that, like, and we talked about this, that he's a bit older than her.
Yeah, just a bit. She's about 2780, and he's about 2900 or so.
We also have to remember that, like I said, you have to read the nature of Middle Earth, is that the elves, they have a very, very short infancy. They grow very quickly. I know. Is that what you were going to say, Sid? I'm sorry. They grow very quickly. Yeah. They physically mature very fast. Yes. But then they're adolescents for like 50 years. So
correct. Yeah. Now the last thing. Oh yeah, go ahead.
But let's talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have 2 points I want to make. I'll say this one now, and then I want something for the very end. On this one, there's a very specific thing in Tolkien about, and I'm not saying I remember it quite right, but elves grow to physical adulthood by about age 20, and then they grow to emotional life maturity before they're 100. And so I believe the ratio you were using, Matt, doesn't work for their childhood. Tolkien had a different story about that.
Also, because the ratio doesn't remain constant; it changes throughout their lifespan as well.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly. I'm particularly at the early years.
Yes.
If they're looking at 18 years, and Círdan as an example for it, he would be 18 years old at about 3,600 years old, roughly, depending on entropic decay, which they're all suffering from. Anyway, I will just say my next topic for next month, just so, since you guys got yours figured out, it's going to actually be a segue to this, which is going to be the powers of Legolas. And the reason I'm going to cover that is because I wrote an article on this. It went pretty well on Quora, which is, what kind of amplification over men does he actually have? And I want to throw out some.
We have to talk about him walking on snow at some point, right?
Well, there's other things he's described as doing that are
very strange. Yes.
That is not normal. He's quick, he's fast, he's strong. And what I want to do next
but he talks to rocks. He's weird.
This is gonna be Legolas too. We know that elves have got different abilities that men don't have, even Númenóreans to a certain degree. And I want to cover this as Legolas Part 2 next month, because there are several passages that indicate that he's got some kind of a strength and mental amplification going on. He does not have a ring. So the point is, I want to talk about here is, for next month, is what do we agree? What do we think in a group, in a council, are his amplification over a normal man of 16 to 18 years old, or young man, let's put it, because I think that will tell us how strong this guy is. I mean, what's his quickness going to be like in a melee battle when he's talking about swords and shooting arrows, which I think the movie actually captured pretty well. He is quicker, way quicker than normal, and I want to talk about that next
Okay.
time. But anyway, that's my
There's a lot.
that's
Okay,
my
let's. Okay, that's quite because we're
yeah.
way over time. Sid has to say something. I have to end my segment, and we have to talk
Yep.
to the chat.
Yep,
Sid, go
got
ahead.
it.
Very quick. I think the description Tolkien gave directly of the first 100 years of an elf's life overrides the ratio you talked about.
Yeah.
Although I think that's valid for the rest. Number two, and this is a question for the chat. Please let me know if anyone answers. We have not talked about the relationship between Gimli and Legolas in all of this. And honestly, I don't think Legolas was married simply because I don't think his wife would let him hang out with Gimli as long as he did,
Oh yeah.
or have that friendship be the center of the entire lives of both of them.
But very shortly
So,
after sailing to the west, Gimli's going to die, and then he's going to get married.
But now here's a question. No, he would get married right before Gimli's death. He wants Gimli at the wedding.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Now I could write that fic.
Please do. I would love to read that. And by the way, I forgot about this. It slipped my mind. But somebody in the chat said earlier, Sid Kemp for president. I forgot who it was, but I would just say I would vote for him.
Thank you. But coming back to Legolas, I just have the fanfic run something like this. And an elvish bridezilla saying, "What's that short, fat, bearded, hairy guy doing at my wedding?"
I know.
Okay.
I think I think the wedding would be immediately called off at that point.
I want to talk about.
Wait, no, we really do got to end, man. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Sid.
No, I got.
I want the chat to tell us. Given Matt is doing more on Legolas next month, do you guys want me to shift and do a whole segment on Legolas and Gimli at the same time next month? Let the chat decide. I'll either stick with Gandalf or I'll do one on Legolas and Gimli and come back to Gandalf after.
Speaking of the chat, we got to catch up a little bit here. Moogle was wondering if in Middle-earth there are something like dark elves like the Drow or the Dunmer. There was a dark elf. He was called Eol. He was the dark elf. There are also what are known as the Calaquendi, which I'm sorry, not Calaquendi. The other one, not Calaquendi are light elves. The Moraquendi, which roughly translates as the elves of the darkness, which are the elves that never saw the light of the two trees. They considered that to be a slur. So they preferred to call themselves the Unmanyar, which means not of Aemon, and the elves that were calling themselves the Calaquendi, who were being very pompous, calling themselves the elves of the light, they called the Amanyar, which is the elves of Aemon. So the term dark elf is considered actually offensive in Middle-earth. There's one other thing. And then to answer Kit's, Kit says orcs were elves. Orcs are mockeries of elves. They were not literally elves. There is an elvish parable, but we'll get into that more at some other point. And go ahead, Matt.
I just wanted to really quickly say the reason I thought it was a slur is because it wasn't so much they loved the dark. They loved the dark because it allowed them to see the stars, the way the world was in the beginning. And they didn't like the whole idea that they like to live in the dark. That's not what they wanted. They wanted pure starlight to look at night.
Even the elves of Aemon preferred nighttime.
Yes. That's a very great distinction.
And star.
I'm sorry, Sid, you're going to have to repeat that. You cut up a little there.
Remember that L, that pronunciation means elf and star.
Eldar, the people of the stars.
The people who woke up at the moment Elbreth created the first stars in the heavens.
Not the first stars. They were already stars. She created more stars for them.
She created the constellations.
Basically. Yes, exactly that. They wanted to be closer to Varda, absolutely. But yeah, they didn't like being called dark elves. It's like I said, it's considered offensive in Middle Earth to call an elf a dark elf. You might get smacked in the face if you say that, and deservedly so. But there was one elf that hated light, and he was called the Dark Elf.
John, in all the terms you mentioned, you never mentioned the Avari. What is it? What are the Avari?
Avari are called, it translates to refusers. They are the ones, because there's sort of like a lot of different types of elves, but it really boils down to 4. The Noldor, the Vanyar, the Teleri, and the Avari. And the Avari are the ones that when Oroma and the 5 Guardians and Melian showed up and said, hey, let's all go to the west, they said, miss me. No, forget it. Not moving.
Did they stay all the way
in the east, all the way in the east, because they were the ones that taught language to men who awoke in the Far East, which is what all the elves are supposed to do. But the Valar kind of went off script a little there. They improvised a little in the music.
John, what were you talking about a minute ago when I lost my train of thought? I wanted to
about dark elves.
Before that.
Oh.
Darn it.
Well, you were saying when I was talking about the difference between Morroquendi and Calaquendi and how they don't like to be called that.
Oh, okay.
That's when you were going. But anyway.
Yep.
My God, are we over time today? And
God,
and you know what? It's kind of wonderful that we can, because Sid's section went long, my section went long, and we don't need to be super stringent anymore, because that was really because Sid has to rest and everything. But Sid's been feeling pretty good lately.
Thank you.
So like I keep that half-hour thing, and that's when we try to wrap it up. Matt's just happened to stop right at the exact moment that we were like 30 seconds off.
But now I want to go for another hour.
I know, but this is let me tell you guys, let me lift the veil slightly and tell you guys what usually happens after the show is that Sid leaves because he's got to go spend time with his wife or go eat or sleep or and then me and Matt talk until eventually I'm like, I really got to go because I'm hungry and I need to use the bathroom, and Matt's ready to talk for another 7 hours. And it's hard. It's hard
too.
It's hard for me to see that you don't understand the conversations that we have privately can become so fascinating that it's hard to tear away from.
Yeah, we go down into the underdeeps for sure.
Into the depths below Moria.
This has been a good show, though.
It has been fun, and Kit says that they're glad that Sid is feeling better. But real quick, chat, what do you think of the idea? Like, should Sid continue with the Gandalf thing, or should he build off of the Legolas thing and talk about the Legolas Gimli dynamic? That would make a lot of the show Legolas centered, I think.
I think Sid should stick with the Gandalf thing as he originally did, because
I agree.
Because in my section he's going to have plenty to talk about when I talk about
absolutely
his powers. Yeah. So he's going to get his chance.
Absolutely. Okay. That's what I think.
But we've never talked about his actual powers. Like, is he actually stronger and faster? And the answer to all that is yes. And it's going to be.
I think he's not only is he stronger and faster, he's weirder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We never hear anybody else. We hear about elves talking to trees. He is the only elf that we ever hear talking to rocks.
Well, yeah, that's my next question, is the various powers that he reveals. Were all the elves of Greenwood the Great like that? Or was he somehow special beyond them? I want to leave that for next.
Yeah.
I think if you smoke.
Don't answer. I'm not going to let you talk.
I think if you smoke enough pine cones, I think maybe you could start talking to a rock.
Well, we know he wasn't smoking pine cones when the Fellowship was traveling through Holland.
I know.
Because you know what? He wasn't smoking anything because Legolas thought smoking was weird.
Yeah, so did Treebeard.
Treebeard never commented on it.
No, I'm just saying.
Nobody dared to smoke anywhere near Treebeard.
Smoking.
When you stop to think about it, it's pretty strange.
Smoking leaf is kind of like a hobbit smoking hair. It's kind of like why would it,
Yeah, exactly.
why would a tree smoke hobbit hair?
Hey, look,
Well, we get
don't give people any ideas, okay?
Yeah, sorry. This is a kid's show. That's right.
A really quick, serious question. Did Merry and Pippin, while in Fangorn, ever light a fire?
No.
I can't.
No, they didn't. As a matter of fact, it was described that in Treebeard's house, there was some sort of fireless light there that was, I think it was some sort of crystal that was catching moonlight or something. Not that the book said that, but that's just what I think it is.
But isn't lighting fire with dead wood kind of like lighting a fire of a little pile of fingernail clippings? It's just kind of like,
well, look, we have to remember that Ents are not trees.
you know, I'm just saying.
It's important to note they are not trees.
Yeah, we should have it.
I think they really don't like their guests lighting fire.
No, they don't like axes either. So
we should have an episode where all we do is just drink a little bit of scotch and start talking about the weirdest theories that there ever was in Middle Earth. I bet you that show would be pretty good.
I could go for some scotch, but anyway, guys, we are going to come over to here.
Sid, before you leave, goodbye.
Sometimes Sid's gone before we even end. But schedule wise, let me let you know, guys know what's happening. So next Thursday on the 9th we'll be live. I'll be live here, and we're gonna start the Return of the King. I believe we finished Did we finish the Two Towers? I don't even remember at this point. I think we did. I'm going to have to look back. Yeah, because I remember doing the Shagrat and Gorbag voices. So, yeah, we're going to start the Return of the King, and that'll be our reading. I know the Two Towers took a long time to get through. The Return of the King is going to take even longer, especially when we do the appendices. So, that's going to be on the 9th. In 2 weeks, on the 16th, we'll be playing that wonderful little Two Towers game for the Game Boy, and I've really been enjoying that, especially since even though it's still based on the films, there's a lot more to talk about. I love that we got to stop and try to translate some runes when we got to Moria. And then in 3 weeks, because there's a lot of Thursdays in April, TBA, I'll let you guys know what we're doing. It might be another reading stream, or we might come up with something unique. The Council of Tolkien will return May 7th. And Sid will be there. I misspoke at the beginning. Sid will be there. It's the next month after that, June, that he will not be there. But there we have it. And of course, if you're watching me through Twitch, you guys know I'm live every day. Tomorrow I'll play Dragon Quest II for you guys, and you guys pretty much know the schedule. Anyway, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, the live will end. For those of you who are watching me on Twitch, we're going to raid somebody. So let's see if I can find a raid target real quick here. Let's see who we have online. Oh, well, I got to raid Zophar because he's playing a hacked version of Fazanadu, which I know he mispronounces. He's going to say Faxanadu, I guarantee you. Yeah, he just said Faxanadu. It's Fazanadu. You got your game stick? Good to hear, Matt. Good to hear. All right, let's raid Zophar. I'll give you guys a raid call. Okay, guys. There's your raid call. For those of you that are on Twitch, copy that, paste it as we head into Zophar's stream. Those of you on YouTube, good night and good luck. Here we go. See you at the great.